So once again, good morning to all of you. Today we are starting with the core Java module. We could say the modular batch that you have joined. And let me introduce myself, who I am, and what I'm going to conduct. So first of all, if you talk about who I am, so I can say my name is Rohan Parmane. So I'm being in Sunbeam since last 8+ years. So if we talk about my experience, so it is around 8+ years of experience in training plus development. I do teach different languages as well as different technologies. So I generally teach the languages like C++, the Java, the SQL, also the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and the technologies like the web technology, the Android, generally to the main courses, that is to the CDAC courses. I also have done some application development for Sunbeam into the Android. That means Android application, mobile application development. That is what I have done. So I will be here to you to train you into this module, that is the core Java module, into which we are going to actually understand the fundamentals. Not only that, along with the fundamentals, we are also going to talk about the OOP. When I talk about fundamentals, it is the language fundamentals, यानी कि language के basics हमें आने चाहिए. So that is what we are going to talk about. Then we will talk about the OOP, object-oriented programming concepts in Java. Along with this, now as you have seen the versions of Java that have been gone up to like Java 20. So the Java has been now converted from OOP to functional programming. So even that part, the major part about the functional programming, how Java has become the functional programming language. So even that we are going to study. And along with that, the rest of the things that is more important for the interview perspective, like we could talk about the multi-threading, we could say the annotation, the reflection technique. Generally, जो की requirement है as a base for going for, we could say, an advanced Java to understand how the framework works. So that is what is required. This is what we are going to study. Again, ये बाकी सारी जो छोटी मोटी चीजें हैं that are going to be the part of it. reflection. So ये जो छोटी मोटी like we could say वो wrapper classes का concept हो गया, or we could say within that particular Java वो class object के concept हो गए, what is the reference, how to create an array, ऐसी जो छोटी मोटी concepts है वो तो सारे देखेंगे, but जो major part है Java के अंदर, so when you are going for a Java, what actually you need to understand. So first of all, language fundamentals, यानी कि किसी भी language के बारे में आपको उसके basics आने चाहिए. Java is also an object oriented programming language. Java is also a functional programming language. तो ये दोनों variations we are going to cover up. Then as we said, interview topics like multi-threading as well as the reflection. Major part ये रहेगा. Again the file IO वगैरह वो सारी चीजें we are going to cover it up. Now when you are learning this particular core Java module, that when we are going to start with this, ऐसे कुछ बहुत major prerequisites नहीं होते हैं. So there are not kind of like you should be knowing multiple languages before going for Java. It is not like this. So is it like sir C++ is mandatory for this? No, it is also not like this. If you are learning Java for the very first time, when you learn this Java, you might be finding it out कि ये काफी एक difficult language है, or maybe the concepts are really heavy. You might find it out. But as you work into it, जैसे से आप इसके अंदर काम करना चालू करोगे, like if you start programming into it, if you start solving the assignments into it, you will be finding it out that this Java language is way more simpler. जितना आपने consider किया था कि ये कितना difficult है, believe me, it is not that difficult. Java is built totally on an abstract level, यानी कि आपके as a developer के लिए abstract level पे कितने fast development हो सकता है, that is what you can even see using this Java language. So that is what the Java is. बस एक छोटा सा general thing that you must know before starting with Java is the programming. That means basic programming आपको आना चाहिए. Now when I say basic programming, it means what are variables, what is a function, what is a parameter, or we could say how functions are declared, how functions are defined, functions को call कैसे किया जाता है, यानी कि जो basic programming skill होता है, console input, console output, all those particular things, ये basic programming जो होता है, basic fundamentals जो होते हैं, so that is what is just required. Even सर हमें वो pointers ये वो सारी चीजें पता है, that is totally fine. I'm saying basic programming is just required to start with Java. Rest each and everything I am going to start considering you do not know any other OOP language. यानी कि आपको कोई भी ऑब्जेक्ट ओरिएंटेड प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज नहीं आता है, सो दैट इज व्हाट आई एम गोइंग टू कंसीडर. हाँ, आता है, दैट इज अ रियली गुड थिंग, दैट इज अ रियली गुड थिंग, बट आई विल बी कंसीडरिंग कि आपको नहीं पता है, you are learning it for the very first time, and that is how I'm going to generally go with the flow. So maybe some of the things you might find it out कि there are a little bit less explanation for it, because कुछ सारे concepts है वो जो आगे हम लोग cover करने वाले. Maybe when you start with Java, you cannot directly start by understanding all the internals of it. As we said, like C is the base, on top of it we have the C++, on top of it we have the Java. But Java सीखने के लिए C++ आने की, literally believe me, you do not have that urgency or the need of learning that C++ for Java. Java can be learned easily without having any knowledge of OP. Believe me. So that is what we are going to do for. So let us begin now. Let us start with the main concepts. Let us actually deep dive into it. Now, when you are going to start with this language, or whenever you are going to start with any particular OP language, the first thing that you need to understand is the object-oriented software development. What do you need to understand? Object-oriented software development. So it is a way of developing the softwares. It is a way of developing the softwares. Now, in this object-oriented software development, there are different stages. Suppose आप एक कंपनी में हो and you have been received a project now, and on that project you really want to do something. यानी कि आपको वो पूरा full fledged project एक complete करना है. And when you're trying to complete that project, you have decided that I'm going to use one object-oriented programming language for its building. Now, if you want to go for that, means you have decided to follow the path of object-oriented software development. Now, when you are trying this particular thing, so inside this there are different stages. उसमें पहला stage जो होता है, the first stage is called as object-oriented analysis. OOA stands for object-oriented analysis. Second stage is object-oriented design. This is called as object-oriented design. We are going to talk about all these steps. Do not worry onto this. And the third stage is called as OOP, which is called as object-oriented programming. Again, there are few more stages, but we are going to stop till this. So there are, let's say, 3 stages over here into this OOSD. The first stage is object-oriented analysis, second object-oriented design, and the third one is object-oriented programming. अब ये stages actually में होते क्या है और what goes inside the stages, हमें करना क्या है इस stages के अंदर, let us understand it. So when you talk about object-oriented analysis, the first stage, in this stage you decide how many objects are going to be created within that project. Analysis के stage में you are going to analyze कितने objects बनने वाले हैं, how many objects are going to be created within that particular project. एक simple example लेके चलते. Suppose we are going to create an attendance system. We are going to create an attendance system, let's say for a college. हम लोग example लेते हैं कि let's say Sunbeam के लिए. So if you want to design an attendance system, you will find it out that for this attendance system, you require one first object called as the student object. क्योंकि स्टूडेंट ही है जो कि वहां पे पंच करने वाला है, जिसका रिकॉर्ड मुझे स्टोर करना है. नॉट ओनली दैट, इन दिस अटेंडेंस सिस्टम वी कैन ऑल्सो से इवन द एम्प्लॉय कैन लॉग इन, यानी कि एम्प्लॉय का भी अटेंडेंस में मार्क कर सकता हूं. यानी कि चलो मुझे पता चला देयर आर गोइंग टू बी दिस 2 ऑब्जेक्ट्स, वन इज द स्टूडेंट ऑब्जेक्ट, अनदर इज द एम्प्लॉय ऑब्जेक्ट. नॉट ओनली दिस, इफ आई गो अहेड, आई विल फाइंड इट आउट कि स्टूडेंट और एम्प्लॉय दोनों के बीच में कॉमन क्या है, अटेंडेंस. अटेंडेंस यानी कि क्या होता है कि मे बी उसके अंदर आज का डे होगा, लेट्स से मंथ होगा, मे बी इन टाइम होगा, आउट टाइम होगा. दैट मींस देयर इज गोइंग टू बी वन मोर ऑब्जेक्ट कॉल्ड एज द अटेंडेंस ऑब्जेक्ट. यानी कि इफ आई टॉक अबाउट एन एंटायर सिस्टम, द अटेंडेंस सिस्टम, आई फाइंड आउट कि एटलीस्ट उसके अंदर 3 ऑब्जेक्ट्स तो बनने ही वाले हैं. एक, द फर्स्ट इज द स्टूडेंट ऑब्जेक्ट, द सेकेंड वन इज द एम्प्लॉय ऑब्जेक्ट, एंड द थर्ड वन इज द अटेंडेंस ऑब्जेक्ट. इन तीनों ऑब्जेक्ट्स को, यानी कि इन तीनों ऑब्जेक्ट्स का एनालिसिस मैंने अभी पहले किया. व्हाट आई डिड वाज माय फर्स्ट स्टेज वेयर आई एनालाइज्ड दैट हाउ मेनी ऑब्जेक्ट नीड्स टू बी क्रिएटेड. व्हाई? बिकॉज व्हिच वे आई एम फॉलोइंग द ऑब्जेक्ट ओरिएंटेड सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलपमेंट. इन द ऑब्जेक्ट ओरिएंटेड सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलपमेंट यू फाइंड आउट, आप यहां पे फाइंड आउट करते हो फर्स्ट स्टेज में कि नंबर ऑफ ऑब्जेक्ट्स कितने हैं. आई फाइंड आउट दैट देयर आर 3 ऑब्जेक्ट्स. अभी तक whatever the analysis that I've done, I find out that there are three objects. Now, once the analysis part is done, once you have found out, okay, there are going to be these three objects, what you go for is the second stage where you start designing those objects. The second stage that stands for OOD, object oriented design. Now, in this object oriented design, you start designing these objects. Just say, for example, if you talk about the student object, now the question comes, how the student object should look like. यानी कि स्टूडेंट ऑब्जेक्ट के अंदर एग्जैक्टली होना क्या चाहिए. So I can say inside the student object we should have something called as roll number. Inside this object what we should have is nothing but the name of the student. Maybe उसके साथ what do we need is something called as the address of the student. यानी कि स्टूडेंट के रिगार्डिंग जितनी भी सारी चीजें चाहिए, whatever you need that particular information about the student, you should be starting designing that object in that way. So this is my first object, whatever that I've identified, that is the student. Similarly, I will start designing even the rest of the objects. Suppose मेरे पास एक और object है, we call it as the employee object. Now what do we have for employee? So employee has got employee ID, employee has got name, employee has got address, employee has got mobile. I'm just designing it first of all. मैं पहले क्या कर रहा हूँ, मैं बस डिजाइन कर रहा हूँ. जितने objects मुझे दिख रहे हैं, whatever the objects that I'm able to see, I'm just designing. Now I come for the attendance part. If I come for the attendance part, I get to know कि attendance के अंदर there are going to be the details like we could say in time, the out time, we could say the date onto which the punch has been recorded. Now, if I look at this attendance, see, I'm designing this particular objects over here, student, employee, attendance. But while designing specifically this attendance class, I find out ये in time, out time और date इनके लिए मैं कौन से type of data type को choose करूं. यानी कि for this in time, should I be considering integer? If I consider integer, तो इसमें सिर्फ hours जा सकता है या फिर minutes जा सकता है. So should I keep it in the form of total hours or should I keep it in the form of minutes? That means now I have to even go to the micro level to identify what are the different data types that I want to use while creating or while designing those objects. Yes, for example, this in time, I want to say this in time, I want to design it as a time object. This out time will be also a part of a time object. This date is going to be the object of this date class. यानी कि while creating or while designing these objects, मैं even micro level पे जाके ये भी देखूंगा कि which are the data types that I'm going to use. For the student and for the employee, there was no any problem. But while designing this attendance, I came to know कि यहाँ पे मुझे दो और objects बनाने की जरूरत है. One is the time and another is the date. So that means I will start designing one more, we could say, an object called as a time object, where I'm going to have, let's say, integer hours, we could say integer minutes. If I want to have that date particular object, I'm going to say this is the date where I require, we could say, integer day, integer month, and we could say integer year. So look at that. In the case of analysis, I find out there are three objects that are being required. But at the time of design, I find out there are not only three, but there are total 5 different objects that we are going to be creating. It can be the student object, it can be the employee object, and it is going to be the attendance object. But to have an attendance object, we require the objects of what? The time as well as the date objects. So this is what generally goes in the second stage of this OOSD, in the design part. So analysis, which is being used to analyze how many objects are going to be created. Design is the phase where we are going to understand how the objects are going to look like. What are the important, we could say, the fields that we are going to keep it inside those particular objects. This is the second stage of this OOSD. Now, after completing the second stage, you go for the third stage, which is called as OOP. It is called as object-oriented programming. Now remember, object-oriented programming is a methodology. It's a process. It is not a direct language. Object-oriented programming की बात करोगे तो वो क्या है? वो एक methodology है. So which is being followed by the different languages. और जो language इस पूरे methodology को follow करता है, उस language को we generally call it as an object-oriented programming language. So what is OOP? It is a methodology. So this OOP, whatever the methodology is, whatever the process is, we are going to talk about it in detail. But this is the third stage where you decide that which object-oriented programming language to be used. जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल देर आर वैरायटी ऑफ ओओपी लैंग्वेजेस. दो एग्जांपल्स बताता हूं या फिर तीन एग्जांपल्स बताता हूं, लाइक जावा, और वी कुड से द पाइथन, और वी कुड से द सी शार्प. All these languages are the OOP languages. Now, depending on your requirement, whatever the requirements that you had initially for that project, depending on the analysis that you have done, depending on the design that you have done and your requirements, you should be finalizing which OOP language will suit better for development of this project. It is not always the C++, it is not always the Java, it is not always the Python, it is not always the C Sharp, which is going to say that this language will be the perfect language for development. No, it is not like this. So we have already understood that we have this requirement. Analysis के case में we have seen these are the objects that needs to be created. और इन ऑब्जेक्ट्स के साथ मुझे अब इस तरीके से काम करना है. That means I have done an analysis that I have to even do something called as association, I have to do something called as inheritance. तो अगर ये सारे काम मुझे करना है, now I need to identify that which language will provide me the better stability, which language will provide me the better features of development of this application. Now, whichever language is going to provide me the better, we could say, the features for this application development, that language will be chosen for this development of the application. यानी कि सपोज अगर CPP वो we could say facilities provide करता है, the better functionalities देता है, it comes up with better libraries, I will go for C++. If Java is providing me that, I will go for Java. If Python is having a better set of libraries on top of it, where I need to actually work with the graphs and so, I will go for Python. If I need to work with C Sharp, even I can go for it. And whichever are going to be the object-oriented languages, so those object-oriented languages can be checked which language is the best for developing this application. And that is what has been decided in this third stage. Like this, even further, there are different stages inside this, but हमारा first of all target यहाँ तक आके खत्म होता है. Like we are going to decide which language to choose, and right now we are going to choose the Java as the language for the development, because that is what we are learning now. So where we are at this particular stage, the object-oriented programming stage, first of all to learn this language. So ये development तो होगा ही. You are going to do the analysis, you are going to do the design, and after that you are going to choose the OP. But out of this OP languages, right now this is the language that you are targeting. यानी कि आप अभी सीखने के लिए यहाँ पे आ चुके हैं. That's what we are learning now. Now, in this object-oriented programming stage, once you have decided with this particular language, then you start developing those applications, और फिर आप इसके आगे के steps में चले जाते हैं. Now, the next stage comes up, which is called as OOT, object-oriented testing. Object-oriented development भी होता है. So that is what you have used the language. You have used the language. You are developing the application. Now, after developing, what you need to do? You need to test those applications. How do you test? You test it by using, once again, a new methodology called as OOT, object-oriented testing. Now, once the application is tested, the application gets deployed. Application of client use भी कर रहा है. Now the client is using that application. Now I want to, let's say, maintain that application. How do I maintain it? That is the next stage. It is called as OOM, object-oriented maintenance. So all these stages are there inside this object-oriented software development. हम लोगों ने बस तीन ही देखे. For us, for this three is more than sufficient for us. So in this particular stage, in this object-oriented programming stage, the Java that we have chosen up, now let us start talking about it. Now, when you talk about Java, we said Java is an OOP language, object-oriented programming language. Now the question comes, ये object-oriented programming actually में है क्या? What this OOP is? Is it some programming language? Is it a process? Is it a methodology? Exactly उसको क्या कहे? So this particular OOP is generally a methodology. A methodology. That means you can say it is a set of protocols that has been given. What it is a methodology. It is a set of protocols that has been given that the language has to follow to being considered as an OOP language. So it is a set of protocols that has been given, and the languages has to follow the set of protocols to be considered as an OOP language. So now how they are being classified? So if you talk about in general, totally on an abstract level, if you talk about it, which are those protocols? So those are being considered as abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. And polymorphism. Generally, if you talk about in general that what is an OP or what are those protocols, so these are the protocols: abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. But this is the statement which is on total abstract level. एक थोड़ा सा abstract level पे statement है. Let us deep dive into it. Now, according to Grady Booch, who is pioneer in the UML diagrams, or we could say the Unified Modeling Language, who has actually developed that particular language, according to him, he said that this OP can be divided into two categories. Inside this OP, the protocols that has been given can be divided into these two categories. One is called as major pillar and another is called as minor pillar. There are two categories, major pillar and minor pillar. See, it is the same thing. ये आपका पूरा abstraction पे हुआ, यानी कि abstract level पे आप बात करोगे, you talk about abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance and polymorphism. But if you deep dive into the OP, if you are trying to actually understand what OP is, then this OP is divided into two categories. One is called as major pillar, another is called as minor pillar. Now, this entire concepts of OOSD is given by the Grady Booch. Now, according to him, because he has given the concepts, according to him, he said that this object-oriented programming concepts, this methodology is divided into these two categories. One is major, another is minor. Now, which all things comes inside these major pillars? So, inside the major pillar, you have abstraction, you have encapsulation, you have, we could say, modularity, and you have hierarchy. You have hierarchy. If you talk about minor pillars, inside minor pillars, what do you have? You have typing slash polymorphism. You have concurrency. And finally, you have persistence. You have persistence. So if you look at, we could say the major and minor pillars, the abstraction, encapsulation, modularity, hierarchy, polymorphism, concurrence, persistence. So this is what generally represents an OP. But is it like all of them represents an OP? No. Any particular language that claims to be an OP language, or any particular language that has to be an OP language, must follow all these major pillars. Must follow what? All these major pillars. Following these minor pillars are totally optional. ये minor pillars को follow करना क्या है? Optional है. Following all the major pillars are mandatory for any language to be considered as an OP language. However, following the minor pillars is totally optional. ये optional है. Now, for example, like let's say your C++ or we could say the Java, because both are like really a similar languages. So in both of these cases, they follow all these majors as well as the minor pillars. यानी कि अगर आप स्पेसिफिकली जावा की बात करोगे, जावा डू फॉलो ऑल द मेजर पिलर्स, एब्स्ट्रैक्शन, एनकैप्सुलेशन, मॉड्युलैरिटी एंड हायरार्की, प्लस जावा आल्सो फॉलोज ऑल दिस माइनर पिलर्स. यानी कि व्हेन वी आर गोइंग टू लर्न दिस जावा नाउ, we are actually going to see all these pillars even programmatically. So let me tell you an example. So if you talk about an abstraction and encapsulation using class and object, we are going to see. If you talk about modularity, the packages concepts in Java, we are going to see. If you talk about hierarchy, it talks about association, it talks about inheritance. So ये पूरा का पूरा even examples we are going to see into the Java's libraries as well. How the Java is using this inheritance and we could say association over there. Not only that, we are going to see the polymorphism. Collection framework in Java is one of the best example of it. If you talk about concurrency, this is where we are going to talk about the multi-threading. And persistence, this is where we are going to talk about the Java spy library. यानी कि Java के अंदर जितने भी concepts है, all those concepts we are going to cover up to see this entire OOP. As I said, ये सारी चीजें cover होने वाले, but this is what are the main things that we are going to cover. Multi-threading, example of concurrency. If you talk about OP में वो सारी चीजें आएंगी. And as I talked about, एक मैं point यहाँ पे लिखना भूल गया, because many of the students are willing to learn. It is called as the collection framework, or it is called as collection framework. Again, it is one of the best example. It is not so difficult. यानी कि लोगों को लगता है कि ये collection framework is really difficult, but believe me, it is not so difficult. If you understand the Java's OP, collection framework is one of the simplest thing. क्योंकि वो एक set of libraries है. You are just using those libraries. You are just using those data structures. That's how simple it is. So that is what we are going to study. But before going to the Java, let us understand each and every pillar over here. Let us understand what is abstraction, encapsulation, modularity, hierarchy, the polymorphism, the concurrency, persistence individually with some examples, and then we are going to start with our first programming Java. So let us start with the first major pillar called as abstraction. Called as abstraction. Do you know what is abstraction? यानी कि अगर किसी ने पहले से पढ़ा होगा, so if you have already learned what is an abstraction, do you know that what it is? If you can answer, it is totally fine. If you know what is an abstraction, if you don't know, anyhow, I'm going to tell you. Yes, do you know? Oh, very good. Good. Hiding the unnecessary details, fine. Very good. It works onto the outer behavior. Yes, any other? It shows only essential part. Good. So let me talk about it. Abstraction. Very good. You have actually understood it. Abstractions have समझना important है. Definitions can be given in different ways. Let me simplify its definition. The definition is getting to know only essential things. Getting to know only the essential things. So what does it mean? How do I understand what is an abstraction? So for example, let's say you are using a mobile device. Nowadays, whatever the mobile devices that you use, in that particular mobile device, you have different processors. That means specifically, it can be a Qualcomm processor, it can be a MediaTek processor, it can be the Exynos processors. यानी कि processors कोई भी हो सकता है. Second, it has got a battery. Battery can be 5000 milliamp, 6000 milliamp, 7000 milliamp, कुछ भी हो सकता है. Then we have the cameras into it. यानी कि cameras आपका we could say rear camera होता है, front cameras होता है. Into the rear camera, it can be 50 megapixel, 100 megapixel, जो कुछ भी हो. Now what we are looking at is just the name onto it. यानी कि मुझे चाहिए Snapdragon. अच्छा, is the Snapdragon processor there? मुझे चाहिए बैटरी, let's say is it 5000 or 6000 milliamp battery. मुझे चाहिए कैमरा, is it like around we could say 80 megapixel, 100 megapixel, 150 megapixel, whatever you require. यानी कि what you are actually looking for is just the information that is required to purchase a device. कि मुझे एक मोबाइल चाहिए which is going to have a particular Snapdragon or a MediaTek or a Exynos processor. आप बस इतना बोलो. Now वो कौन से एग्जैक्ट जनरेशन पे काम कर रहा है. अच्छा, इवन इफ यू गो इन डिटेल फॉर इट, अगेन हाउ दैट प्रोसेसर वर्क्स ये आपको नहीं पता. सेकेंड थिंग, वेयर द प्रोसेसर इज बीन कीप्ट ये आपको नहीं पता. Whether the processor is attached at the lower, we could say, or we could say at the bottom of the mobile device, or is it at the middle, or is it at the top of the device, ये भी आपको नहीं पता. यानी कि where the processor is kept, which all camera quality, or we could say which is the particular vendor giving that particular camera, ये आपको नहीं पता. What you know is only the brand name of that mobile device that is offering a 108 megapixel of camera. But who is the actual vendor who is providing it? You are even not interested in it. अच्छा चलो फ्रंट कैमरा, अच्छा फ्रंट कैमरा बस है, अरे बट कौन से वेंडर ने दिया, अगेन यू डोंट नो अबाउट इट. सो व्हाट यू नो इज जस्ट द आउटर बिहेवियर ऑफ अ मोबाइल डिवाइस वेयर यू आर ट्राइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड कि मेरे अगर ये चेक मार्क्स है, यानी कि ये फीचर्स उस डिवाइस के अंदर है, आई एम गोइंग टू परचेज दैट डिवाइस. The battery is 6000. अच्छा वो बैटरी किसने दिया है, which is the company offering that particular battery, how the battery arrangement is done. अच्छा within that battery which all elements has been used, आपको उससे कुछ भी लेना देना नहीं है. What you are interested is only in the checklist of your requirements. अच्छा, is the particular phone having a better camera? Check. Is the particular phone having a better battery? Check. Is it the particular phone having the processor from this particular series? Check. That's it. Is the particular phone doing a fast charging? Check. अच्छा, how it is doing, you're not interested, you're just interested, हाँ plug किया, fast charging है, check. So this is what you're looking at, the outer behavior of an object. That means you're looking at the mobile devices from an outer side. You're getting to know only the essential things of that mobile device. That is what we call it as an abstraction. इसे ही हम लोग क्या कहते हैं, abstraction कहते हैं. Now if I want to understand technicality that how this can be done, or what exactly an abstraction is, so abstraction means whatever the functions that you call. Imagine technicality, when you come down to a language, how will you say that what is an abstraction? So whatever the function call that you do, or whatever the objects that you are going to create, so these are the examples of abstraction. Now imagine this, mobile itself, a device, is an object. मोबाइल एक पूरा का पूरा आपके हाथ में क्या आ चुका है, एज एन ऑब्जेक्ट आ चुका है. सो यूजिंग दैट डिवाइस इज नथिंग बट एन एब्स्ट्रैक्शन. यूजिंग दैट डिवाइस इज नथिंग बट एन एब्स्ट्रैक्शन. आप उस मोबाइल के अंदर एक क्लिक करोगे, यू क्लिक ऑन अ बटन एंड द फोन हैज बीन, let's say, used, or we could say you are calling a particular person far away from you. You just click on something, click on a particular application, you just type something, you just send, and a message has been sent to a particular user. यानी कि आप बस उसका आउटर बिहेवियर यूज कर रहे हो, यू आर जस्ट कॉलिंग द फंक्शंस फ्रॉम इट. नॉट ओनली दैट, वो मोबाइल एज अ ऑब्जेक्ट आपके हाथ में आ चुका है. So function call, or we could say calling a particular function or creating the objects of a particular classes or a structure are the examples of abstraction, because these generally represents the outer behavior. Function call करो, अच्छा वो implement कैसे भी हो, what you just need to understand is how to call a function. आपको बस मोबाइल कैसे यूज करना है वो पता होना चाहिए. सिमिलरली हाउ टू कॉल अ फंक्शन, यानी कि व्हाइल कॉलिंग अ फंक्शन, डू आई नीड टू पास वन पैरामीटर, डू आई नीड टू पास टू पैरामीटर्स, उस फंक्शन का डिजाइन क्या है, ओनली दैट मच यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड. कि उस फंक्शन के पास एक पैरामीटर है, दो पैरामीटर है, तीन पैरामीटर है, पहला पैरामीटर कौन से टाइप का है, दूसरा पैरामीटर कौन से टाइप का है, ओनली दीज पर्टिकुलर थिंग्स यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड. दैट्स इट. ओनली गेटिंग टू नो द इसेंशियल थिंग्स ऑफ इट. दैट्स व्हाट एन एब्स्ट्रैक्शन इज. उसे ही क्या कहा जाता है, एब्स्ट्रैक्शन कहा जाता है. Let me know. Is first the abstraction clear to you? Is first the abstraction clear to you? Yes. Yes. Very good. Now, exactly, we could say the opposite is your encapsulation, or I can say encapsulation is actual understanding of how those things are implemented or how it can be achieved. Definition की बात करोगे, definition is really simple. Definition says binding the data and code together. What encapsulation says? Binding the data and code together. For an encapsulation, एक statement बहुत important है. Abstraction cannot be achieved without encapsulation. इसमें ही सारा चीज आ जाता है. What is the statement? That an abstraction is not possible without encapsulation. Without encapsulation. What is encapsulation? Binding the data and code together. ये encapsulation है क्या? Let us now understand it. So we took the same example of we could say the mobile device, like whatever the example that we studied. So let us talk about the same one. The mobile device that is been there into your hands, that is you are using it as an object, you are using its functionalities. So to create that particular mobile device, a company has to do a lot of R&D onto it. एक किसी भी कंपनी के लिए, let's say the company is Samsung, let's say the companies we could say the Xiaomi, let's say the companies we could say the whatever, we could say the OnePlus, whatever these companies are. So इन सभी कंपनीज को कोई ना कोई R&D वहां पे करना पड़ेगा. They need to understand how to connect those all components and to fit it in a particular plastic or a metal frame. यानी कि एक particular rectangular frame के अंदर how to fit all those components and how to make that particular component more attractive for the users. कि वो प्रोसेसर एग्जैक्टली हम लोग कहाँ पे रखें. अच्छा, इफ यू आर यूजिंग द प्रोसेसर्स, वी हैव अ बजट, लेट्स से वी हैव अ टाइट बजट ऑफ वी कुड से अराउंड 15,000, यानी कि मोबाइल का सेलिंग प्राइस लेट्स से इट इज 15,000. So for this 15,000, what all things we should consider to create that particular mobile device? यानी कि कंपनी को प्रॉफिट भी तो होना चाहिए. So they will say कि चलो एक काम करते हैं, let us go for something called as the MediaTek processors. MediaTek processors. Why don't we go for, we could say under this, the camera which are going to be around, we could say 64 megapixel of camera, or maybe we could say 60 megapixel of rear camera. Maybe we are going to have a 16 megapixel of front camera. Maybe we could say the battery we cannot afford to give him around 5,000, so let us give him around 4,000 milliamp hour battery. Milliamp hour battery. So that is what we can give it to this. So ऐसे ही whatever are the features that they talk about the mobile devices, depending on that particular cost, they are going to decide कि कैसे उसको implement किया जा सकता है. How all these components can be implemented to create a device within, let's say, that 15,000 budget. So that's what a company will look for. Now, who is thinking about it? The company is thinking about it. Who is binding all these particular components together? The company is binding all those components together. So for the company perspective, entire this creating a mobile device is nothing but an encapsulation. उस कंपनी के पर्सपेक्टिव में, क्योंकि उनको ये सारी चीजों के बारे में सोचना पड़ता है, दे हैव टू थिंक अबाउट ऑल इट्स इंटरनल्स, दे हैव टू थिंक अबाउट हाउ दिस कंपोनेंट्स कैन बी कनेक्टेड विद ईच अदर एंड हाउ दिस कैन बी फिटेड इनटू एन सिंगल फ्रेम. So for a company, this is what is going to be an encapsulation where they are trying to bind that entire thing together. What they're trying to do, they're trying to bind this entire thing together. So for a company perspective, it is an encapsulation. But if that particular mobile device is created and been sold to you, agar wo aapko diya jaye, so for you, what it is an abstraction. यानी कि एग्जाम्पल एक ही है, द डिवाइस इज ओनली वन, but if you look at the perspective, if you look from the company's perspective, it will be an encapsulation, and if you look at from your perspective, it is going to be an abstraction. क्योंकि कंपनी के लिए एनकैप्सुलेशन करना मैंडेटरी है, बिकॉज दे आर वर्किंग ऑन अ टाइट बजट. फॉर यू, आपको सिर्फ चाहिए उसके फंक्शनलिटीज, आपको सिर्फ चाहिए उसके चेक मार्क्स, यानी कि क्या उसके पास कैमरा है, गुड कैमरा, चेक, गुड बैटरी, चेक, विद इन द बजट, चेक, एंड यू हैव परचेज द डिवाइस. So the same device, company perspective is encapsulation, your perspective is abstraction. As we said the segment, abstraction is not possible without encapsulation, which is true. अगर वो कंपनी वो पर्टिकुलर डिवाइस प्रोड्यूस ही नहीं करेगा, अरे हाउ यू आर गोइंग टू परचेस इट? आर यू गेटिंग दैट? अगर कंपनी ने उसको मैन्युफैक्चर ही नहीं किया, इफ दैट मोबाइल डिवाइस डज नॉट एग्जिस्ट, अरे हाउ यू आर गोइंग टू परचेस इट, हाउ यू आर गोइंग टू यूज इट? सो विदाउट एनकैप्सुलेशन, abstraction is not possible. Now, are there any technical examples for this? Yes. तो इसमें टेक्निकल एग्जांपल्स कौन कौन से आते हैं? So for example, if you talk about function call, don't you think someone needs to define a particular function? So function definition, or we could say defining a function, is an example of encapsulation. Not only this, if you talk about creating the classes, creating the structure, again, these are examples of encapsulation. Defining a class, defining a structure, example of encapsulation. अब ये क्लास क्या है और वी कुड से स्ट्रक्चर क्या है, इफ यू डोंट नो इट, दैट इज टोटली फाइन, वी आर एनी हाउ गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट इट. हम लोग वैसे भी क्लास के बारे में बात करने वाले हैं. स्ट्रक्चर इज समथिंग दैट इज बीन देयर इन C++, जावा के अंदर नहीं है, बट आई कैन कीप इट लाइक दिस, डिफाइनिंग अ क्लास, डिफाइनिंग अ क्लास. नाउ थिंक अबाउट दिस फंक्शन डेफिनेशन. एज आई सेड, एटलीस्ट बेसिक आपको आता होगा. लेट अस टॉक अबाउट दिस फंक्शन डेफिनेशन. I hope everyone know that how to define a function. For example, there is a function, we will call it as the add function. For this add, we pass these two values. One is n1 and another is n2. And inside this function, what we write is the code. Maybe I can say this is going to be integer result equals to n1 plus n2. And finally, I can say I'm going to print that result. Whatever is the result, maybe if you are in C++, if you are in Java, or whether you are in let's say C, whatever the language is, based on that you are going to print that result. So for this particular function, if you look at this, अगर आप इस function को जरा ठीक तरीके से check करो, you will find it out that this function accepts the data. Are you able to see that? N1 and N2. So when you are going to call this function, when you are going to call this add function, this 10,20 ये क्या है? So this is the data. So this data has been passed to the function which is stored inside this two parameters, n1 and n2. And using this data, what we have done is the calculation. That means CHO part आप देख रहे हो, this is called as the code. What is called as? This is called as the code part over here. क्योंकि इसके अंदर बहुत कुछ हो सकता है. Maybe I am doing let's say the result one is let's say the addition. Maybe नीचे में result के अंदर maybe I am doing the multiplication. Maybe I can name this instead of add as arithmetic. तो arithmetic के अंदर मैं सारे arithmetic operations कर रहा हूँ. यानी कि मैंने बस उसको क्या पास किया, डेटा पास किया, एंड बेस्ड ऑन द डेटा व्हाट आई एम परफॉर्मिंग आर द डिफरेंट ऑपरेशंस. सो कैन आई से दिस पर्टिकुलर फंक्शन इज ट्राइंग टू बाइंड द डेटा एंड द कोड टुगेदर. What this function is trying to do, the function is trying to bind the data that we have been passed to it plus the code together. That's what it is doing. That's why the function is an example of encapsulation. And the same thing is done by the class. We are going to see how a class is, but this is what the same thing, it is going to be done by class as well. Let me know, is this encapsulation clear to you? Is this encapsulation clear to you? Yes, you can post yes or no. Yes, very good, thank you. You can post it down unless and until you are going to speak. See, generally into the lecture halls, or agar aap offline, we could say we have completed the engineering or you have completed the courses, you might know that generally as a trainer we look at the students faces, and student faces talk to us, वो actually बात करते हैं हमसे, that whether they have understood the concept, whether they have not understood the concept. But into the online mode you have to be active. आपको बताना पड़ेगा, if you don't know the concepts or if you're not getting the concept, you should be explaining it, or you should be saying it कि हाँ यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा doubt होगा, because majority of the students if are not getting the concept, we have to actually revise it, या फिर हमें वापस से उस concept को go through करना पड़ेगा. That is what you have to do. लेकिन मुझे ये समझेगा कैसे? Unless and until you are going to talk with me, I won't be able to understand it. Correct? तो मुझे वो समझ नहीं आएगा. So make sure to like post your messages if you have got the concept. It's very good. So what we have done is like we have understood this two, we could say the major pillars into it. One is abstraction, another is encapsulation. Now let us go for the third one, which is called as the modularity. Now what does the modularity says? Modularity says dividing the entire code into smaller tasks or smaller modules. Again, I will take the same example of the mobile. And a mobile device is one of the best example that you can consider it for an OP, for an object-oriented programming concept. एक real life example अगर आप किसी की बात करोगे, so mobile device I could say is one of the best example because it actually covers a lot of concepts over here. So now let us talk about the modularity. If you talk about modularity, again you talk about the same mobile device. अब उस मोबाइल डिवाइस के अंदर इतने सारे कंपोनेंट्स है. व्हाट डू यू थिंक, आर दिस ऑल द कंपोनेंट्स प्रोड्यूस्ड बाय द सेम कंपनी? क्या वो Xiaomi ही खुद या फिर वो सैमसंग ही खुद क्या सारे कंपोनेंट्स प्रोड्यूस करता है? नो. So if you talk about any particular device, maybe the display can be the display can be manufactured by a different company, by a totally different vendor. उस डिस्प्ले के ऊपर लगने वाला ग्लास कोई एक और वेंडर प्रोड्यूस करता है, जैसे देयर इज अ कंपनी कॉल्ड एज गोरिल्ला who generally actually produces the gorilla glasses for your mobile devices. या फिर अगर वो नहीं लगाना है, so even there are so many vendors that can provide you the glass for the front and for the back. Maybe the processors you talk about, there are 3 different companies. आपके पास स्नैपड्रैगन है, कॉलकॉम का कंपनी है, यू हैव मीडियाटेक प्रोसेसर्स, यू हैव द एक्सिनॉक्स प्रोसेसर्स जो सैमसंग प्रोड्यूस करती है, यानी कि देयर आर डिफरेंट डिफरेंट कंपनीज मैन्युफैक्चरिंग दोस प्रोसेसर्स. इफ यू टॉक अबाउट द कैमरा, अब कैमरा तो कितने वेंडर्स हैं. So even Sony gives out the camera for the mobile devices. Again, along with the Sony, there are n number of companies, n number of vendors who can give you that particular that particular camera component for your mobile devices. अरे उतना ही नहीं, have you thought about the buttons that you use for the mobile device? अच्छा, वो बटन मैन्युफैक्चर करने वाला वेंडर कोई अलग ही होता है. So for that vendor, they generally pass on the design. वो डिजाइन के हिसाब से बटन क्रिएट करके he will just hand over it to you. Maybe the charging that you generally put down to it. So whatever the charging cable that has been produced, again उसका vendor अलग होता है. Not everything is manufactured by the same company. There are different vendors who are like experienced in manufacturing those components. अब उन सभी components को लेकर के we are trying to assemble it. तो उनको assemble करके एक particular mobile device को create किया जाता है. This is what we call it as the modularity, so that the entire mobile is divided into smaller modules. यानी कि एक particular company specialized into creating the processors, यानी कि वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ processors के ऊपर ध्यान देती है. Some companies are specialized in creating only the batteries, यानी कि बैटरी की efficiency कैसे बढ़े, they are focused only on that. Some companies are focused only on the camera quality, यानी कि कैमरा का क्वालिटी कैसे हम लोग we can increase it. That's what they are focused on. This is what we call it as the modularity. If you come down, we could say into the programming part, if you talk about the language, what the modularity is. So this modularity talks about dividing the code, into smaller modules, or you could say different files. एक तो आप उस कोड को छोटे छोटे मॉड्यूल्स में, छोटे छोटे टास्क में आप डिवाइड कर सकते हो, और यू कैन डिवाइड इट इनटू डिफरेंट फाइल्स. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल, आई हैव गॉट दिस 2 फंक्शनैलिटीज दैट आई वांट टू इंप्लीमेंट. यानी कि सपोज मुझे एडिशन भी करना है और मुझे सब्ट्रैक्शन भी करना है. नाउ इज इट लाइक शुड आई कीप इट इनसाइड वन पर्टिकुलर फंक्शन? नो. व्हाट आई विल डू इज आई विल क्रिएट अ ऐड फंक्शन सेपरेट एंड आई विल क्रिएट अ सब्ट्रैक्ट फंक्शन सेपरेट. So what I've done is I have separated this into 2 separate functions. Suppose I want to do an arithmetic operation, and along with that, suppose I want to do some input output operation. What I can do is all the arithmetic related functionality I can keep it into a separate file. All the input output related functionality I can keep it into the separate file. यानी कि मैं not only into the different functions but also I can divide it into the different files. This is what the modularity talks about. So any particular language that you are looking at, so these particular languages, now see a hierarchy, see a particular way how the languages are built. Every particular language has done an encapsulation. हर एक लैंग्वेज ने encapsulation किया हुआ, because of which you are able to perform abstraction. And ये जो encapsulation किया हुआ है, now this encapsulation is been also done with the help of modularity. एग्जाम्पल के लिए अगर आपने सी सीखा होगा, आई होप एटलीस्ट एवरीवन हैव लर्न सी एंड एवरीवन हैव रिटर्न दिस फंक्शन एटलीस्ट वंस. एटलीस्ट ये तो पता ही होगा, प्रिंट एफ. सी बेसिक्स तो आता ही होगा, दैट इज व्हाट आई एम अज्यूमिंग. और हमने प्रिंट एफ में यू हैव जस्ट रिटर्न लाइक दिस हेलो वर्ल्ड. हैव यू रिटर्न इट लाइक दिस? क्या आपने कुछ ऐसे लिखा है? यस. नॉट ओनली दैट, इफ यू हैव यूज स्ट्रक्चर या फिर अगर आपको स्ट्रिंग के साथ काम करना है तो इवन आपने स्ट्रिंग नाम का डेटा टाइप भी शायद से यूज किया होगा इंस्टेड ऑफ यूजिंग द कैरेक्टर एरे लाइक दिस. अगर यूज किया तो अच्छी बात है, नहीं यूज किया तो इवन दैट इज टोटली फाइन. So if you look at these two particular functionalities, one is printf, which is used to display something onto the console, and another is something called as a string. तो ये दोनों भी functionalities एक ही header file के अंदर नहीं है. So maybe if you want to use this printf, you have to include a header file called as stdio.h, यानी कि एक फाइल बना. And if you want to work with string, then there is something called as a string.h, जो कि string functions के साथ डील करता है. Now C language also, उसने क्या एक ही particular file के अंदर कचरा नहीं किया. What the C language did was it has actually distributed this entire code into the separate files. So dividing the code into different modules or separate files, this is what we called as the modularity. तो आप चाहे तो एक हाथ फंक्शनलिटीज एक हेडर फाइल के अंदर, और वी कुड से सम ऑफ द फंक्शनलिटीज यू कीप इट इन वन फाइल, सम ऑफ द अदर लॉजिकल ग्रुप ऑफ फंक्शनलिटीज यू कीप इट इनटू द सेपरेट फाइल्स. नॉट ओनली दैट, उन सेपरेट फाइल्स के अंदर यू डिवाइड दैट फंक्शनलिटीज इनटू डिफरेंट फंक्शंस. दैट्स हाउ यू डू द मॉड्युलैरिटी. ऐसे ही आप यहाँ पे क्या कर सकते हो, मॉड्युलैरिटी कर सकते हो. लेट मी नो, आर दिस एब्स्ट्रैक्शन, एनकैप्सुलेशन एंड मॉड्युलैरिटी क्लियर टू यू नाउ? आर दिस थ्री out of four major pillars clear to you? Very good. Now we are reaching towards one of the important pillar, that is the hierarchy. That is the hierarchy. Now believe me, this is one of the important pillar now, because maximum things that you're going to see in Java revolves around this hierarchy. What this hierarchy is, so this hierarchy talks about reusability. What this hierarchy talks about? This hierarchy talks about reusability. Reusability. Now, for example, let's say I have already have a particular, we could say a function, just like a printf function. Can I reuse that function? Yes. मैं जितनी बार चाहे उसको reuse कर सकता हूँ. I have a particular structure. Can I reuse it? हाँ, मैं reuse कर सकता हूँ. बट व्हेन यू कम डाउन टू ओपी, इसका रीयूजेबिलिटी का डेफिनेशन थोड़ा सा चेंज हो जाता है. सी फर्स्ट, रीयूजेबिलिटी इन द सेंस वही पर्टिकुलर चीज बार बार यूज करना. दिस इज व्हाट अ रीयूजेबिलिटी टॉक्स अबाउट. वही पर्टिकुलर चीज बार बार यूज करना. फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर आपके पास एक मोबाइल डिवाइस है, द सेम एग्जांपल दैट वी टॉक्ड अबाउट, अगर आपके पास एक मोबाइल डिवाइस, आप उसको किस कौन कौन से तरीके से आप उसको यूज कर सकते हो? तो बहुत तरीके से यूज कर सकते हो. सो देखो, एक फनी एग्जांपल है. सो यू कैन यूज दैट पर्टिकुलर मोबाइल डिवाइस फॉर कॉलिंग. ठीक है, मैंने यानी कि कॉलिंग के लिए उसको यूज किया. अब सपोज करो मुझे किसी को मारने के लिए कुछ तो चीज चाहिए, यूज दैट मोबाइल डिवाइस. मोबाइल डिवाइस हेवी तो होता है, मार भी तो सकते हो. फनी एग्जांपल है, बट अंडरस्टैंड इट. एम आई रीयूजिंग द मोबाइल डिवाइस? यस. उसका पर्पस कुछ अलग है, बट आई एम यूजिंग इट. आई एम रीयूजिंग इट वंस अगेन फॉर दिस. उसे कहते हैं रीयूजेबिलिटी. आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट जनरल टर्म ऑफ रीयूजेबिलिटी. नाउ इफ यू कम डाउन टू ओपी, इसका रीयूजेबिलिटी का कांसेप्ट थोड़ा चेंज हो जाता है. हाँ, हमें रीयूज तो करना है, बट व्हाट वी आर गोइंग टू रीयूज, सो वी आर गोइंग टू रीयूज सम क्लासेस ओवर हियर. When you talk about reusability specifically in OP, तो OP कौन से reusability के ऊपर फोकस करता है? It talks about reusing some of the classes. Reusability का general definition नहीं, I'm talking about the reusability into the OP now. So when you talk about this reusability, it says you can reuse those particular classes in two ways. आप दो ways से उनको reuse कर सकते हो, यानी कि उस कोड को reuse कर सकते हो. The first way depends on the type of relationship called as a hazard. यानी कि reuse करना है तो उसने दो relationships दिए. One is called as a has a and another is called as a is a relationship. What we are talking about? Hierarchy. Hierarchy के अंदर what it talks about? Reusability. But reusability आप करोगे कैसे? यानी कि how you are going to reuse it depends on the type of relationship that it has. Has a and is a. Has a होगा, it says use association, and if it's a is a, use inheritance. Again, what we are talking about? We are talking about reusability. Reusability of what? Reusability of classes. एक क्लास को कैसे reuse किया जाए? How do I reuse that particular class into some different classes? एक तो आप उसका association कर सकते हो. Either you can do an association or you can do an inheritance. If it's a has a relationship, go for association. If it's a is a relationship, go for inheritance. अब इसको exactly हम लोग समझे कैसे? How do we understand it? काम करना कैसे? So again, I will try to explain it to you into the real life example. I hope you will understand it. बहुत simple example है. When initially telephones were created, यानी कि initially जब mobile phones, not telephone, sorry, mobile phones were created, they invested a lot of efforts in understanding कि कैसे उस एंटीना को how to fit it into that particular mobile device. R&D किया गया क्योंकि अगेन इट इज अ वायरलेस डिवाइस. पहले के टेलीफोन्स थे जो कि कॉर्डेड थे, उनके अंदर एक केबल था, बट दे हैव टू क्रिएट सच काइंड ऑफ अ कॉर्डलेस मोबाइल डिवाइसेस कि जो कहीं पे भी कैरी किया जा सके. And what the people did, what the inventor did was they actually identified how that antenna can be added to the mobile device, and that is why you will find it out earlier devices के अंदर एक छोटा सा एंटीना से बाहर आता था. यानी कि earlier mobile devices that you're able to see something looks like this, यानी कि ऐसा मोबाइल डिवाइस और इसके ऊपर एक छोटा सा ऐसा एंटीना, यानी कि this is what you will be calling. And this antenna was responsible to pick up those signals and we were able to actually call to the person. अब जैसे जैसे we could say the technology progressed, can I say the same antenna that you're able to see it over here is being used nowadays. यानी कि ये as it is use भी होता है, but nowadays it is not present like this as an outer part over here. Rather, I can say it is present inside the body or within that particular body. एक तो उसी बॉडी के अंदर यानी कि उसी के अंदर होता है, या फिर ऑन टॉप ऑफ द बॉडी समवेयर कुछ एंटीना की आपको लाइंस, यानी कि स्पेसिफिकली ये iOS के एक डिजाइन में आपको मिला था, आईफोन के एक डिजाइन में आपको मिला था, एंटीना का एक डिजाइन भी था. इट वाज अ पार्ट ऑफ द डिजाइन इटसेल्फ. सो दैट इज हाउ नाउ इट इज बीन केप्ट. सो कैन आई से एंटीनास आर स्टिल यूज्ड, क्योंकि इसके बिना आपको रेंज तो आएगा नहीं. You cannot say it's just a plastic body you are able to call. No, there is an antenna which is receiving those signals. But where is the antenna? Now that antenna is hidden within that particular mobile device. So can I say the concept of antenna, the concept of this is being used as it is even into our day-to-day mobile phones. यानी कि एक बार इसको क्या किया गया, इन्वेंट किया गया. वो द वंस इट वाज इन्वेंटेड, अब हुआ ये है कि अब उसको बस स्लाइटली मॉडिफाई करके इट हैज बीन रीयूज्ड ओवर द पीरियड, और ये अभी भी आपके मोबाइल डिवाइसेस के अंदर एग्जिस्ट करता है. Not only that, even you talk about your cars that you are able to see. For the cars, wherever they have provided the feature of radio within the cars, they have an antenna on top of its body. एक तो वो बॉडी के ऊपर एक किसी स्पेसिफिक स्टाइल में होगा, या फिर लेट्स से वो उसी बॉडी के ऊपर हिडन रहेगा, बट अगेन इट स्टिल एग्जिस्ट. दैट मींस द कांसेप्ट ऑफ एंटीना इज बीन रीयूज्ड मल्टीपल टाइम्स. इसी को क्या किया गया, रीयूज किया गया, बट इनटू द डिफरेंट डिफरेंट फॉर्म्स. उसके बस फॉर्म्स को क्या किया गया, चेंज किया गया. दैट इज व्हाट इट इज बीन डन. This is what we call as a reusability. Maybe you talk about the calling features. You talk about the calling features. यानी कि over the period how the calling features have been changed. Earlier जो भी हम लोग कॉल लगाते थे, it was going towards we could say network के थ्रू जाता था, network के थ्रू generally कॉल लगता था, and for that the companies were responsible. Nowadays we even have the coil, we have the coils, we have the calls that generally goes over we could say the Wi-Fi or over the internet. यानी कि internet के थ्रू अब calling possible है. Initially, we have a separate infra for it. Now, even through the internet itself, we are able to call to the other people. So that is how it has been evolved. But for this evolution, can I say the first thing is like it was being created from scratch first, and whatever the concepts were created has been reused now. जो concept पहले से बन चुके थे, उनको अब क्या किया गया? They have been reused, and a better form is been created out of it. एक better form, एक better version has been created out of it. That is what we call it as the reusability. उसी को हम लोग कहते हैं reusability. Now, if you come down into the Java programming language, or if you come down to any particular programming language, how to reuse it depends on कि उनके बीच में रिलेशनशिप कैसा फॉर्म होता है. Again, we are going to do the same thing. हम लोग भी reusability करने वाले. The way it has been reused into the real life scenarios, similarly we are going to reuse it. And when we are going to reuse it, we are also going to create some better forms over here. यानी कि जो मेरे पास पहले से present था, उसी को मैं reuse करूंगा. I'm going to reuse it and I will be creating a better form out of it. So if I have a particular class, मैं उस class को as a association or inheritance reuse करूंगा and I will create a better product out of it. That's what we call it as reusability. अब ये हैजर क्या होता है, इजर क्या होता है. अच्छा, व्हाट डज इट मीन बाय हैजर रिलेशनशिप, व्हाट डज इट मीन बाय इजर रिलेशनशिप. आई विल ट्राई टू एक्सप्लेन इट टू यू इन अ सिंपल, वी कुड से एन एग्जांपल. अगर आपको अभी समझ आया, गुड. इफ यू फाइंड इट आउट कि नहीं नहीं ये एग्जांपल एक्चुअल में वो क्लास वगैरह वो सारा चीज वी आर नॉट एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड इट, वी आर गोइंग टू एक्चुअली मे बी वी कुड से वी विल जस्ट कीप दिस एग्जांपल असाइड. एंड जब हम लोग हायरार्की की बात करेंगे, व्हेन वी आर गोइंग टू एक्चुअली लुक एट द हायरार्की, वी आर गोइंग टू गो फॉर इट. Is my voice audible to all of you, or is it really less?
You are audible properly.
Okay, thank you. Omkar, maybe you have your volume that is pretty much less. You can increase your desktop's volume. Yes, thank you. So let me know if there are any problems regarding the audio or anything, so that we can just rectify it. Make sure you are able to hear me properly. Fine. So हम लोग थे like we were up to the hierarchy. Let us talk about few examples. एक basics examples में देता हूँ, ठीक है? So maybe I'm going to say there is a human and there is a heart. देखो, हम लोग एक natural body की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ. We are a human and within that human we have a heart. So what do you think? इनके बीच में grammatical sense कौन सा बनाता है? यानी कि grammatical statement कौन सा correct है? Is human is a heart is a grammatical correct statement, or is human has a heart is a grammatical correct statement? What do you think? Very good. If you talk about grammatical sense statement, it is always going to be a has. Human has a heart. तो इसे कहा जाता है that the human is having a dependency of this heart. Actually, यहाँ पे वो technical terms भी है that this human is actually called as the dependent object, and this heart is called as the dependency object. This is called as a dependency object. यानी कि human has a heart, यानी कि human के अंदर क्या है? Human के अंदर वो heart है. Human के अंदर वो heart है. So whenever this has a relationship exists, you generally go for association. आप किसके पास जाते हो? You generally go for association. एक और example देता हूं. We could say employee and the manager. Employee and the manager. Now tell me, between these two entities, अब ठीक से employee और manager के बीच में, what do you think? Which is the perfect relation that you can keep? Is it? Now look at this. You tell me, which is the grammatical correct statement? मैं आपको multiple options देता हूँ. Employee has a manager. Employee is a manager. Manager is a employee. Manager is a employee, or employee is a manager. Think about it. Very good. I think Tulsi Ram has got that particular answer over here. See, there are multiple ways. There are multiple ways you can imagine it. There are multiple ways you can reuse it. That's what I'm talking about. कि जब आप reusability की बात करोगे, the reusability can be done in multiple ways. अब यहाँ पे अगर आप नोटिस करोगे, I will take one of it. मैं इसमें से एक पर्टिकुलर रिलेशन यहाँ पे देता हूँ, एंड रेस्ट ऑफ द थिंग्स कि when to go for has a, when to go for is a, ये मैं आगे एक्सप्लेन करूंगा. So maybe on we could say the day 5th or day 6th when we are going to go for hierarchy, I will talk about exact association कब करना चाहिए, exact inheritance कब करना चाहिए, technicality. Right now we are trying to understand it in abstract level. So can I say it like this? Manager is a employee, or manager has a employee. मैनेजर के केस में बताओ, मैनेजर और एम्प्लॉय के केस में बताओ, हैज अ फिट होता है क्या? हैज अ फिट होता है क्या? नहीं होता है. इज अ फिट होता है क्या? इज अ फिट होगा क्या? इज देयर गोइंग टू बी इज अ? यस. सो यहां पे मैनेजर इज अ एम्प्लॉय इज अ ग्रामेटिकल करेक्ट स्टेटमेंट. मैनेजर is a employee is a manager is a employee will grammatically make sense. Manager has an employee, but यही अगर मैं चेंज करूंगा, सीक्वेंस अगर मैं चेंज करूंगा, look at this, employee and manager. अब tell me, एवरी एम्प्लॉय, हाँ, हैज अ मैनेजर कि एम्प्लॉय इज ए मैनेजर? वेरी गुड. इफ यू टॉक अबाउट एम्प्लॉय एंड मैनेजर कि हर एक एम्प्लॉय के अंदर एक मैनेजर की डिटेल्स है, सो इट इज गोइंग टू बी अ हैज. यानी कि आप उसको किस पर्सपेक्टिव से देख रहे हो. अगेन इमेजिन दिस, सी नो वन जनरली टॉक्स अबाउट इट, बट आप उसको किस पर्सपेक्टिव से देख रहे हो. हाउ यू नीड दैट पर्टिकुलर क्लास टू बी रीयूज्ड. ये पर्टिकुलर क्लास, वेदर इट्स अ हार्ड क्लास, वेदर इट्स अ एम्प्लॉय क्लास और वेदर इट्स अ मैनेजर क्लास, उसको आप किस तरीके से यूज करना चाहते हो. विद इन दैट पर्टिकुलर वे यू हैव टू आइडेंटिफाई whether it creates a has or is a, and based on which you are going to reuse it, based on which you are going to reuse it. तो अगर आप यहाँ पे देखोगे, ह्यूमन एज अ हार्ट, यस, क्योंकि ह्यूमन के अंदर वो हार्ट है. मैनेजर इज ए एम्प्लॉय, यानी कि एम्प्लॉय के अंदर मैनेजर की डिटेल्स आने चाहिए. बट एम्प्लॉय हैज अ मैनेजर, क्योंकि एम्प्लॉय के पास क्या हो सकता है आगे, उसके रिपोर्टिंग मैनेजर्स मल्टीपल भी हो सकते हैं, यानी कि एम्प्लॉय के अंदर क्या है, मैनेजर की डिटेल्स एम्बेडेड है. सो दिस इज द वे जनरली यू आर जस्ट गोइंग टू रीयूज द क्लासेस. अब ये रीयूज जब करोगे, इफ इट्स अ हैज अ, तो करने का तरीका अलग है. इफ इट्स अ इज अ, उसका करने का तरीका अलग है. यानी कि सिंटैक्टिकली हैविंग दिस हैजेस इंप्लीमेंटेशन इज टोटली डिफरेंट वर्सेस द इज अ इंप्लीमेंटेशन. यानी कि हैज और इज के बीच में इंप्लीमेंटेशन क्या होगा, थोड़ा सा अलग होगा. अब ये रिक्वायरमेंट होती है कि लाइक हाउ इट मस्ट बी यूज, यानी कि उसको कैसे यूज किया जाना चाहिए. वेदर इट नीड्स टू बी इंप्लीमेंटेड यूजिंग दिस वे और दैट वे, इसको कैसे करना है क्या नहीं है, all this part we will learn it when we are going to actually study this hierarchy in detail. Believe me, hierarchy is one of the biggest topic generally in OP, which takes at least 8 to 10 hours to understand it. Minimum I'm saying. इतना बड़ा टॉपिक हायरार्की का होता है. बट अगेन, एज आई सेड, आई हैव जस्ट ट्राइड एक्सप्लेनिंग इट टू यू ऑन एन एब्स्ट्रैक्ट लेवल. मैं आपको बस एब्स्ट्रैक्ट लेवल पे थोड़ा सा एक्सप्लेन कर रहा हूँ कि एग्जैक्टली होने क्या वाला है. इवन द एग्जाम्पल दैट यू आर एबल टू सी ओवर हियर दैट वी क्रिएटेड, ये जो अटेंडेंस सिस्टम का एग्जाम्पल हम लोगों ने दिया था, इवन इन दिस अटेंडेंस सिस्टम एग्जाम्पल यू विल फाइंड इट आउट, ये जो टाइम और डेट हम लोगों ने अटेंडेंस के अंदर यूज किया है, इवन दिस इज एक्चुअली अ रीयूजेबिलिटी. ये भी एक्चुअल में क्या है, एक रीयूजेबिलिटी है. सो यू कैन फाइंड इट आउट. कैन आई से द अटेंडेंस हैज अ in time and has a out time. Not only that, this attendance has a date. यानी कि अटेंडेंस के अंदर क्या है, डेट है, इसके साथ कभी इजर रिलेशनशिप नहीं होगा, हमेशा हैजर रिलेशनशिप होगा. एंड द वे दैट आर एबल टू सी इट राइट नाउ ओवर हियर, दिस इज व्हाट वी आर ट्राइंग टू डू, एसोसिएशन. तो ये हम लोग कर भी रहे हैं, यानी कि वी वर डूइंग इट अर्लियर, लेकिन हम लोग उसके साथ अवेयर नहीं थे. नाउ व्हाट वी आर एबल टू डू इज वी आर एटलीस्ट एबल टू सी कि उसके अंदर एसोसिएशन था क्या. सो दैट इज व्हाट वी आर एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड इट नाउ. Let me know, have you understood the hierarchy? Have you understood? As I said, hierarchy is just about reusability. हाँ, कैसे करना है, as I said, we will talk about it. But today is not the day to talk about it. Maybe we have to wait for it. Maybe we have to see what is a class, how to create it, और फिर उसका reusability हम लोग देखेंगे. But yes, so far, have you understood what is hierarchy? Hmm. Yes, very good. Now, after the hierarchy, which was the sorry last pillar of major pillar, we have completed the entire major pillars. We have completed the entire major pillars now. Major pillars पे ये जो चार pillars थे, abstraction, encapsulation, modularity and hierarchy, are the mandatory pillars for any language to be considered as an OP language. आप कोई भी लैंग्वेज कंसिडर करो, यानी कि अगर आप सी प्लस प्लस की बात करोगे, अगर आप जावा की बात करोगे, इफ यू टॉक अबाउट पाइथन, इफ यू टॉक अबाउट सी शार्प, सो ऑल दिस पर्टिकुलर लैंग्वेज मस्ट फॉलो, मस्ट मैं कह रहा हूं कंपल्सरी, शुड फॉलो ऑल दिस मेजर पिलर्स टू बी कंसिडर्ड एज एन ऑब्जेक्ट ओरिएंटेड प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज. Following the minor pillars, following the minor pillars are totally optional. यानी कि minor pillars को follow करना है नहीं करना है ये आपके ऊपर है. If you want to follow, that means if your language wants to follow, it can follow. If the language does not want to follow, it can just unfollow it. यानी कि mandatory नहीं है, but following these major pillars are mandatory. Now, out of these minor pillars, which are those minor pillars? Now, let us understand it in detail. The first minor pillar that we have is called as polymorphism. Can you tell me what is polymorphism? क्या बता सकते हैं? Anybody know this? What is polymorphism? हाँ, very good. One entity that can take multiple forms. what it is? One entity that can take multiple forms. It is called as a polymorphism. Let me write down the definition. One entity that can take multiple forms. So for example, let us say there is one particular person with a multiple personality disorder. ऐसा एक मूवी था. Have you seen that movie? A very famous movie. The movie name is Aparichit. Correct. So into which there is one particular person जिसके अंदर multiple personalities होते हैं. So he is one of the best example of, we could say, the polymorphism. क्योंकि वो एक पर्टिकुलर पर्सन एक अंबी का कैरेक्टर भी प्ले कर रहा था. नॉट ओनली दैट, ही वाज आल्सो प्लेइंग अ कैरेक्टर ऑफ रेमो. He was also playing, we could say, the character of an अपरिचित, which was like a kind of a superhero कह सकते हो, या फिर आप super villain कह सकते हो, whatever you call it as. He is generally a kind of a superhero who generally tries to find out the good into the people. If the people do something bad, then he punishes them. So generally kind of a superhero. That means he has got these three roles to play within the one single body, within the one single entity. That's what an polymorphism is in actual life के अंदर. Your mobile device itself is an example of polymorphism. आपका मोबाइल डिवाइस आप ही सोचो कितने क्या क्या चीजें कर सकते हो. So your mobile device acts like a general phone where you can call a particular person, where you can text a particular person. Your mobile device acts like a calculator with that particular calculator application. Your mobile device acts like a radio because उसके पास already antenna भी आ चुका है. So even it performs like a radio. Your mobile device acts like a camera क्योंकि उसके पास cameras भी है. Your mobile device acts like so many multiple things. यानी कि वो आपके बैंक जैसा भी कॉल कर रहा है क्योंकि डिजिटल बैंक्स आ चुके हैं. जस्ट एप्लीकेशन डाउनलोड करो एंड योर मोबाइल फोन आल्सो एक्ट्स लाइक अ बैंक, जहां से आप पेमेंट्स वगैरह भी कर सकते हो. यानी कि योर मोबाइल फोन इज आल्सो एन एग्जांपल ऑफ सच पॉलीमॉर्फिज्म. दैट्स व्हाट अ पॉलीमॉर्फिज्म इज. फर्स्ट रियल लाइफ एग्जांपल समझ आया पॉलीमॉर्फिज्म. इज अ रियल लाइफ एग्जांपल क्लियर फर्स्ट पॉलीमॉर्फिज्म? One entity that takes multiple forms. Very good. Now if we talk about, we could say, the technical examples, maybe right now we don't have those technical examples क्योंकि as I'm considering कि आपको कुछ नहीं आता है, so I'm just going to write down those two we could say points over here कि वो कौन से technical points हैं, and maybe later on when we are going to study those particular points, maybe on day 6 or day 7, at that time you are going to see this. When you talk about polymorphism, there are two types of polymorphism. Technicality, if you talk about in any particular languages, there are two types of polymorphism. One is called as compile time polymorphism, and another is called as runtime polymorphism. Runtime polymorphism. Compile time polymorphism is being presented with the concept called as method overloading, and runtime polymorphism is being represented with the concept of method overriding. अब मैंने ऐसे ही क्यों लिखा, why I am writing method and why not function, is because we are learning Java. In Java, all the functions are called as methods. So if you have learned, let's say earlier, अगर आपने C++ पढ़ा रहेगा, so maybe you can call it as function overloading, or you can call it as function overriding. The same thing when you come down in Java becomes method overloading and method overriding. So what these concepts are, कैसे implement किया जाए, so that we will see it when actually we are going to see the implementation of polymorphism. अभी के लिए real life examples are more than sufficient. Maybe you might have seen these examples, maybe you might have not seen these examples. It is whatever it is. So अभी हम लोग उसके technicalities में ज्यादा घुसेंगे नहीं. So we will just understand कि हाँ ऐसे दो concepts है. We have a concept of overloading, we have a concept of overriding. Overloading represents compile time polymorphism. Overriding represents runtime polymorphism. Let me know. Is this polymorphism clear? These are the minor pillars. As I said, minor pillars. Following these minor pillars is totally optional. यानी कि इसके ऊपर हम लोगों को हाँ थोड़ा बहुत time we are going to invest on to it, because this is something that has been supported in Java. Java के अंदर उसका support है. So if support is there, we have to learn it. Let me know. Is polymorphism first of all clear to you? Yes. Then comes the rest two minor pillars, whose examples again we are going to see it at the last class itself. Because this is not something that you might have seen it earlier. Even I don't know कि आपने क्या क्या particular languages को किया हुआ है. So one is concurrency, and the last one is persistence, which are again two simple minor pillars. अगर आप concurrency की बात करोगे, concurrency means performing multiple tasks at the same time. Performing, or we could say executing executing multiple tasks at the same time. At the same time, that's what we call as the concurrency. जैसे अगर आप सपोज एक ही टाइम पे आप टीवी भी देख रहे हो, असाइनमेंट्स भी सॉल्व कर रहे हो, मे बी सबमिशन भी कर रहे हो, व्हाट इट रिप्रेजेंट्स? कॉन्करेंसी. मे बी एक ही टाइम पे आप गाना भी सुन रहे हो, मे बी यू आर लिसनिंग टू माई लेक्चर्स, ऑल्सो यू आर टेकिंग डाउन द नोट्स, व्हाट यू आर डूइंग? कॉन्करेंसी. यानी कि एक ही टाइम पे आप क्या कर रहे हो? यू आर डूइंग द मल्टीपल टास्किंग. दैट्स व्हाट अ कॉन्करेंसी इज कॉल्ड. Now, how this concurrency can be implemented into a language? For that, you require the concept called as multi-threading. Do you remember I talked about it, the multi-threading? So this multi-threading is also an interview topic क्योंकि ये definitely इसके ऊपर questions आते हैं, पूछे भी जाते हैं that do you know what is multi-threading or how the multi-threading is done in Java? Then what is this enable interface? What is this thread class? ये सभी चीजें, जो भी सारी चीजें हैं, that we are going to study. So concurrency we need to understand it. This is not something that you learn even while learning the languages at first. यानी कि languages आप कभी भी multi-threading से start नहीं करते. You first understand it and then you go forward. Maybe some people who have already worked onto the operating system. यानी अगर आपका operating system का module, if you have already covered it up earlier, so I can say definitely multi-threading is one of the concept that has been taught on it. And again, this is the topic specifically I could say which should be learned generally in the case of operating system. ये किसी language में सीखने लायक concept है नहीं. This should be learned on the operating system level. But yes, again we are going to talk about it specifically. Java में multi-threading कैसे होता है? So even that we are going to see it. Yes, that's what a concurrency is. And then we could say the persistence. What is persistence? Persistence means persisting slash storing the data permanently. Storing the data permanently. Persisting or storing the data permanently. यानी कि जो भी मेरे पास let's say data होगा, that data generally gets stored into the program for we could say only till the program executes. जैसे ही प्रोग्राम का एग्जीक्यूशन खत्म हो जाएगा, the data is going to be vanished, the data is going to be deleted. What if I want to store that data permanently? Now this is where generally we go for the persistence. Yes, very good. DBMSB. DBMSB क्या है? So it is again a database where we generally try to persist that data. Now when you come down for this languages, specifically अगर आप C++ के पास आओगे, Java के पास आओगे, now they talk about is there any way that we can use to persist that data? यानी कि क्या कोई भी पर्टिकुलर वे जावा के पास है where it can help me to persist that data? Very good. An example called as JDBC. Not only that, उसका basic example भी file IO is also an example of persisting the data permanently. Your JDBC is also an example of persisting that data permanently. Just the difference is file IO के अंदर we store that data into the file और उस फाइल को मैन्युअली हम लोग यहाँ पे मैनिपुलेट करते हैं. In the case of JDBC, we just hand over that entire thing to the database और database internally जाकर के फाइल में स्टोर करता है. That's the only difference. But the ways are same. यानी कि जावा मुझे दो ways देता है. Either you do the file IO or you tell the database to do the file IO. या फिर तुम database से कहो through the queries to do the file IO. But again, is it providing me the way to store the data? Yes. Is it the data that is being stored permanently? Yes. That's what we call it as the persistence. Let me know. Are these all major and minor pillars clear to you? Guys, are these all major and minor pillars clear to you? I hope now it has been clear to you. What we have studied so far is like we started our concepts through the object-oriented software development. We understood all the three stages: the analysis, the design, the programming. And into the object-oriented programming, we actually talked about that which are the different we could say languages that we have, out of which we decided to go for Java. Now Java is an object-oriented programming language. Now into this particular Java, if we talk about object-oriented concepts, so again it has been divided into major and minor pillar. It is not only the Java, but for all the programming languages, generally the OOP concepts are divided into major and minor pillars. Any language that we talk about should follow all the major pillars compulsory. यानी कि मेजर पिलर्स को फॉलो करना क्या है? मैंडेटरी होता है. Which are the major pillars? Abstraction, encapsulation, modularity, and hierarchy. What about minor pillars? It is optional. The polymorphism, concurrency, and persistence are the minor pillars. Then we talked about each and every pillar: the abstraction, the encapsulation, the modularity, the hierarchy, and even all the minor pillars now. Now, this is what we could say. We have tried to understand what actually an OOP is. Again, please let me remind you, OOP is nothing but object-oriented programming concepts, the methodologies. It is not only it is not the language, but it is the concept, and a language needs to follow these concepts to be an OOP language. And एक language को अगर कहना है कि I am an OOP language, then it has to follow these methodologies, out of which it has to follow all the major pillars. That's what first of all an OOP is. Now from here on, we are going to now actually start looking at what the Java is, Java ki thodi si history, and we are also going to talk about what is there as a language fundamentals into it, and we are going to continue with it. But before, my pillar seems to be a very important concept, polymorphism, concurrency, data storage, how it comes under minor pillar. See, this is something that does not mix and language as an OP language. तुलसीराम, अगर आप यहाँ पे अंडरस्टैंड करोगे, क्या परसिस्टेंस की वजह से क्या वो ओपी बना? नहीं. क्या वो कॉन्करेंसी की वजह से ओपी बना? नहीं. क्या वो पर्टिकुलर पॉलीमॉर्फिज्म की वजह से ओपी बना? नहीं. So tell me, is your C also able to provide you the persistence part? Yes. So क्या वो अब OP बना? नहीं बना. Is your C able to perform the concurrency? Yes. वो भी कर पा रहा है. But is your C able to perform the inheritance? Is your C language able to perform the inheritance? Possible नहीं है. यानी कि उसके अंदर मेजरली रीयूजेबिलिटी का मिसिंग पार्ट है. That is what it is. यानी कि फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, इफ यू वांट एनी लैंग्वेज टू कंसिडर एज एन ओपी लैंग्वेज, ये पार्ट क्या हुआ? ये पार्ट ऑप्शनल क्यों बना? बिकॉज अ पर्टिकुलर लैंग्वेज कैन ऑफर यू टू स्टोर द डेटा. इट कैन से आई विल नॉट ऑफर यू टू स्टोर द डेटा. मैं तुमको डेटा स्टोर करने की परमिशन ही नहीं दूंगा. यानी कि आई विल नॉट हैव एनी लाइब्रेरीज दैट विल हेल्प यू टू स्टोर डेटा. जैसे इमेजिन करो, अगर फाइल आयो के लिए इफ इट हैज नॉट प्रोवाइडेड एनी स्ट्रीम्स, जेडीबीसी के लिए उसने अगर वो वी कुड से द कनेक्शन क्लास या फिर वी कुड से द स्टेटमेंट का इंटरफेस और प्रिपेयर स्टेटमेंट का इंटरफेस अगर दिया ही नहीं होता, if it could have not given that, was it possible? No, it was not possible. That is why. So इनको follow करना for any language becomes totally optional, but following this becomes compulsory. That's what it is. Yes. Any other questions that you have, guys, regarding this OP? So we will cover up these questions and then we will deep dive into it. No. So far, have you understood all of the concepts that we have learned so far regarding the OP? Yes. Fine. So let us do one thing today. We will not immediately start over here because it's around 10:21. So let us take a break first, and then we are going to actually start directly with the Java. So काम करते, let me pause this recording. Yes, the recording is resumed. Now let us talk about a brief history about Java, and then we are going to talk about its versions and then the fundamentals. So in 1991, the James Gosling and his team at that time decided to create a particular language that will be like able to develop the applications or to do the particular application development onto the smaller devices. That was their target. So it was in 1991 they decided for it, and generally they came up with that particular language. यानी कि उन्होंने वो particular language एक develop की, and with that particular language they developed a product called as a Star 7. It was a smart remote at that time. और उस स्मार्ट रिमोट के अंदर उन्होंने इस लैंग्वेज को यूज किया गया था. Now when they developed this language, because all these particular developers were coming from the Unix background, उनका जो background था, it was a Unix background, they decided to keep this C++ as their base language for it, क्योंकि उनका Unix background था इसलिए. और इसी वजह से ये जो Java language जो बनी है, the language that has been developed on top of this C++. Now, when they developed this application and when they developed this particular language, and using this language, the product that they developed, that is the Star 7, a smart remote control. So for this remote control, no one was interested at that time. यानी कि ना ही Sun Microsystem and not even we could say the rest of the industry was interested into that product. And because of which they decided कि चलो ये product तो fail हो गया, but why not to continue with this language and why not to develop it further? उन्होंने ऐसा नहीं कहा कि like let us stop the development of this, but they decided to go on by developing that particular language a bit further. Within that same period, generally the www was getting popular, World Wide Web, the internet was getting popular, and to work with it, generally the web pages that were developed at that time, and to show that web pages, the browsers got very popular. यानी कि वेब पेजेस तो बन रहे थे, लेकिन वेब पेजेस दिखाने के लिए वहां पे नीड थी ब्राउजर्स की at those times. So it was around 92 93 की बात चल रही है. So many of the companies were trying to create their own browsers which were able to display these web pages. And these web pages were some static web pages. Static web pages in the sense ऐसे web pages जिसके साथ हम लोग dynamically कुछ we could say interact नहीं कर सकते. Like if you talk about e-commerce, we could say applications, तो वो काफी dynamic web pages होते हैं. If you talk about like जैसे अगर आप Sunbeam की कोई भी website open करोगे, so first of the pages that you will be able to see कुछ static pages है and कुछ dynamic pages है. So similarly, initially at that time, there were a lot of, we could say, the static pages which were able to be displayed into the browsers. And many of the companies were trying to build their own browsers. Similarly, these people who were developing this Java language, this team decided why not to give a shot, and they created their own browser called as the Hot Java browser at that time. And this browser, the Hot Java browser that they created, was capable of rendering these particular web pages, and not only the static but also were able to implement the dynamic web pages into it. यानी कि वहां पे वो डायनामिक वेब पेजेस भी वो दिखा पा रहे थे. Now because of which this browser got really popular, कि ये जो डायनामिकनेस उस वेब पेजेस के अंदर आया because of this browser. Now this browser got really popular in all those particular developers, and they started working against this. Now, this dynamic behavior into this browser was possible because of the applets that were introduced in Java. And these applets got so popular from which the Java as a language got really popular. And वहां से उसके सारे versions अब we could say introduce होना चालू हुए. So if you talk about the Java versions, so let me open this one. Let me open the versions history for you. If you talk about the Java versions, its first version was released in 1995, which was a beta version. And the official version, which was been released for the development, it was JDK 1.0, released in 1996. Then on, we could say every year there is a one particular version that was released for this particular Java. Java का जब Java का second version launch हुआ, which was called as 1.2, for this abbreviated, or the developers abbreviated it as J2SE, which is called as Java 2 Standard Edition. This was abbreviated like this, Java 2 Standard Edition, and that's why this term J2SE got really popular. Into this particular version 1.2, which was a major change where they introduced first time the Java's collection. यानी कि Java collection का originate अगर आप ढूंढना चाहोगे, it is the Java 2 version, Java 1.2, into which this collection was introduced. Then a major upgrade was given once again into the Java 5 version where they introduced the generics into it. यानी कि Java 1.4 तक there was no any concept of generics, which was introduced later on in Java 5 version. Not only that, they also added the support of annotations into it. Enum के साथ साथ they also added the support of annotations into it. This particular version, after this particular version, that means after the fifth version, they understood कि हम लोगों ने जो abbreviate किया था J2SE, the Java 2 Standard Edition, that was specifically designed for the second version, and now we have already reached the fifth version. And that is why from the sixth version onward, they just changed the name to something called as Java SE. यानी कि Java के sixth version से you generally call it as Java SE, which stands for Java Standard Edition. Like this, there was a major change that occurred into the Java 8 version where they introduced the concept of functional programming. And when they introduced this concept, which was like the lambda expressions, when they introduced it, from this version onwards, यानी कि Java 8 onwards, now the language is also a functional programming language. As I said earlier in our case, where I was saying that in Java, we are also going to talk about the OOP, and also we are going to talk about the functional programming language, because Java is both. It is a OP, yani object-oriented programming language, as well as the functional programming language. And this is what is the version into which it was introduced. Now, if you talk about the Java 8 version, you will find it out that it has written LTS. This LTS stands for long-term support. That means any particular problems into this particular version or the libraries that they have given, they are going to, we could say, help you. The developers are going to help you. The company, the Sun Microsystem is going to help you to actually change or provide the solution on those particular bugs or on those particular problems into the libraries. That's what this LTS means. Similarly, then the Java 11 version was launched, which was launched in 2018, which is again an LTS version. If you talk about the recent one, it is like Java 17, which is again an LTS version launched in 2021. And maybe I think recently in 2024 also, there is one more version that has been launched for Java. And again, these are the versions that are generally getting launched every single year that you are able to see. And few of the versions are the LTS version. Remember, LTS versions are the versions that will be supported for a longer duration. अगर आप सपोज करो जावा 18 जावा 19 यूज करो, मे बी एक दो साल के बाद if you are having some difficulty into those libraries, now those particular problems might not be solved by those particular, we could say, the developers or the company. Now as we know that this particular java is maintained by the oracle, यानी कि सन माइक्रो सिस्टम्स को oracle ने जनरली उसको बाय किया था, and now this company or this entire java versions are managed by the oracle itself. So that is what it is like for these particular versions which are not the LTS versions. उनके लिए support शायद से long term के लिए ना मिल पाए. Maybe whatever the bugs, whatever the problems are, maybe those are going to be solved permanently into the next LTS versions. आगे आने वाले जितने भी LTS versions होंगे, there it is going to be solved. So it is always recommended to stick to the LTS versions. हाँ, आप एक ट्राई करने के लिए, आप थोड़ा सा नए फीचर्स को इंप्लीमेंट करने के लिए, यू कैन डेफिनेटली गो फॉर द रेस्ट ऑफ द वर्जन्स, but it is always recommended to stick to the LTS versions. As a fresher developer, you can stick to it. Now all these particular versions is having their individual, we could say, functionalities that are being added into it. Some of the older functionalities are being removed from it. Now what's our stand? हम लोग कहाँ पे stand करेंगे? We are going to stand exactly at this particular part, यानी कि Java 8. यानी कि we need to study first of all what was there before Java 8. That means till Java 7, which is actually an OOP part. यानी कि अगर आप यहाँ पे नोटिस करोगे, this is the boundary for this. ये जो है, that's the boundary for it. Before this part, ये जो particular part है, entire part, this is where you are going to study all about the OOP. और उसके बाद from Java 8 onwards, whatever you are going to study. So from here, whatever you are going to study, Java 8 onwards जो भी part रहेगा. So this is where you are going to talk about, we could say, the functional programming. This is where the Java becomes the functional programming language. So we are at this stage. So when we are going to develop those particular applications, when we are going to see those particular examples, जब हम लोग demos बनाएंगे, जब हम applications बनाएंगे, so first we are going to focus entirely. Our first entire target is this. Oh, that's it. हमारा टारगेट यही है, ओपी ही हमारा टारगेट है फर्स्ट. एंड आफ्टर कंप्लीटिंग दिस ओपी, मे बी अराउंड आफ्टर 11th or 12th day, we will also look at the functional programming. That means we will look at the lambda expressions, that how Java has become the functional programming. These are the versions of Java. Let me know. I don't think any questions so far till the versions. Any questions so far? No? Fine. Then let us talk about the Java platforms. Java platforms in the sense where you can use this Java. If you want to like develop the applications, which all applications can be developed. And to develop the applications, Java has provided the different versions, or we could say the different platforms for it. The first platform that we have is called as the Java Card. Java Card is a platform of the Java that you can use it to develop the application for your smart cards. So जो smart cards का एक trend है, so into that, if you want to embed some code into it, so that is where you can use this platform called as the Java Card. If suppose you want to develop the Java applications, or we could say the applications for the smaller ended devices, यानी कि जैसे आपको पता होगा फीचर फोन्स, जियो के कुछ फोन्स आते हैं छोटे छोटे, आई होप यू नो दैट. So for such feature phones, if you want to develop some applications, this is where we use one more Java platform called as the Java ME, also called as Micro Edition, Java Micro Edition. Even this is something that I have used. I have seen this particular technology. We generally used to develop these applications for the Symbian operating system. I hope you know that it was for the Nokia devices earlier, way back in 2015. So even I have used it. This is what it has been used for, developing the applications for the smaller ended devices. The third one that you are learning right now, it is called as Java SE, Standard Edition, which is generally used for building a desktop application, which is used to build the desktop applications. And then fourth we have, which is called as Java EE. Java EE, which generally stands for Java Enterprise Edition. It stands for Java Enterprise Edition, generally used to develop web application. Generally used to develop web application. ME, so we could say small feature devices, device application. This is where it is used for. And if you talk about Java Card, this is used for the application development for the smart cards. This is what the platforms are. Now, out of these four platforms, the one that we are going to study is the Java SE. The one that we are going to talk about is the Java SE, also called as the Java Standard Edition. Now, if we have understood the focus that what we are going to study or what we are actually going to do, now let us understand for this particular platform, what are the installations that we need to do. So the first things first, if I want to develop a desktop application, अगर suppose करो मुझे एक desktop application को develop करना है, so for a particular desktop application, exactly what do I need to install? So I need to install a JDK. यानी कि सबसे पहले if I want to work with, let's say, the desktop application development using Java, what I need this platform. How do I get this platform? By downloading this JDK, which is called as Java Development Kit. Generally, whenever you talk about software development using any particular technology or language, so for that technology or that particular language, you get a SDK, which is called as a software development kit. Now, the same software development kit the Java offers, and it calls it as JDK because it's a Java development kit. That's why instead of SDK, it's called it as JDK. So this is what the first of all we require, Java development kit, JDK. Now the question comes down, which JDK we should be downloading? And when we download this JDK, what actually we get it? So let us understand it. So when you particularly download this particular JDK generally supports the different versions of Java. And whatever the versions of Java that you have seen over here, so the same particular versions for which you can get that JDK. So I would recommend that you should be downloading the JDK for the Java 11 version, कि जिसके अंदर by support आपको इस particular Java 8 का support भी उसके अंदर मिल जाए. I would say that you should not go for the next versions of this particular Java. उसके पीछे एक reason है. The reason is like for the next versions or for the next JDKs of this Java, उन्होंने previous particular versions के कुछ particular classes, कुछ functionalities को deprecate कर दिया है. That means they have actually removed the support for those particular functionalities, because of which there will be a problem. और एक problem कुछ इस तरीके से होगा कि जो functionalities हमें use करना है for concept learning of OP, we might not be able to use it. यानी कि हम लोग शायद उसको use नहीं कर पाएंगे. And that is why I could say कि like you should stick to the version, the Java SE 11, ताकि हम लोग OOP के भी functionalities को use कर पाए, and maybe the rest of the functionalities can be also used. So stick to this. Now the question comes from where do I need to download that? यानी कि मैं उसको download करूँ कहाँ से? So for that I have already provided you this particular link कि जहाँ से आप उसको download कर सकते हो. So this is like an open source JDK that has been available. So you just have to click on it. It will take you to this particular website, which will help you to download this JDK. Now remember, JDK के बहुत सारे versions हैं. There are a lot of versions of JDK. जैसे मैंने कहा कि वर्जन आप 8 से लेके 11, 16, 17 डाउनलोड कर सकते हो. प्लस you have also some open source JDK offered by this Adaptium, or also the JDKs offered by the Oracle. आप Oracle के भी JDKs डाउनलोड कर सकते हो. You can also download this JDKs as well. Now Oracle that is offering the JDK, it is for the commercial use, और उसके अंदर के कुछ features generally not available into the free tier. यानी कि कुछ commercial versions की वजह से they are the paid versions. Now this is the open source version, यानी कि एक open source we could say JDK यहाँ पे बना के offer किया गया है, and that one you can download it for your machine. Now the question comes down कि exactly आपको कौन सा download करना है. As you can see this, you can click on all versions, you can click on JDK 21 LTS, you can click on JDK 17 LTS, you can click on JDK 11 LTS और 8 LTS. ये सारे LTS यानी कि long term support version है. तो आप इसमें से जो version आपको चाहिए आप choose कर सकते हो. As I recommend that you should go for JDK 11 LTS. Now out of this आपको exactly किसके पास जाना है? So maybe you want to go for Windows. अच्छा Windows पे कहाँ पे? Is it 64-bit machine? Is it 32-bit machine? तो आप properly वो choose करो and you just download it. If you are onto the Mac, you can download it for the Mac. Maybe आपके लिए वो DMG package download हो जाएगा. If you are on Linux, you can download it for the Linux. Linux के लिए we have direct the commands, or you can go for the Windows. तो जो version चाहिए आप वो download कर सकते हो. Specifically for Windows, I would say you download this MSI file. यानी कि जिसके ऊपर आप next करके you can just install it. This is what you are going to do. Now once this has been installed, once this JDK has been installed, then you have to install one particular IDE. आपके पास एक IDE होना चाहिए. Now that IDE can be anything. आई वुड रिकमेंड कि अगर आपके पास ऑलरेडी कोई एग्जिस्टिंग आईडी है, यू कैन यूज इट, अदरवाइज यू कैन गो फॉर STS4. सो आई एम यूजिंग दैट STS4, तो मैंने उसकी भी लिंक आपको यहाँ पे दे के रखी है. सो इवन यू कैन गो फॉर इट, you can go for this spring io/tools. You can just click on that and you can just go for this particular website, और यहाँ से जाकर के आप उसको डाउनलोड भी कर सकते हो. So you can download that particular STS, directly आप डाउनलोड करो and you will be able to use this. तो एक तो आप STS4 यूज करो, या फिर you can even directly search for Eclipse. आप डायरेक्टली Eclipse भी सर्च कर सकते हो. You can go onto the Eclipse and you can download that Eclipse. It's up to you. So ID के रिगार्डिंग there is no any we could say confusion. यानी कि जो आपको ID चाहिए आप वो ID यूज करो. There is no any compulsion of using the same STS. But as for the JDK, I would recommend कि stick to the JDK 11. बस एक वर्जन के रिलेटेड आई एम स्टिकिंग विद. हाँ, you use the Oracle or you use the OpenJDK. Because I am using an OpenJDK, I would definitely recommend go for OpenJDK because it's an open source. आप उसके पास चले जाओ. नहीं तो you can definitely go for Oracle. You can download that JDK 11. But stick to the version. वर्जन के रिलेटेड थोड़ा सा मैं कहूंगा कि आप स्टिक रहो, so that we can look at both the features. Specifically regarding the ID, there is no such rule. ID अगर आप IntelliJ भी यूज करना चाहते हो, Eclipse यूज करना चाहते हो, और STS you want to use it, you can use any of these particular IDs. There is no problem into it. Whichever IDs you are comfortable from the earlier part, you can stick to the same IDs. No problem. Now that's what we are going to download. Now the question comes down like when we are going to download this JDK, what actually we do get it? यानी कि इसके अंदर से हमें exactly मिलेगा क्या? So let us understand. When you download this JDK, what you get are first of all are the tools. And if you talk about JDK, so what's there inside this JDK? Inside this JDK, what you get are the tools. We could say the documentation tools plus documentation plus one of the important thing that you get is called as JRE, which stands for Java Runtime Environment. What it stands for? Java Runtime Environment. So when you download this JDK, inside this JDK, what you get are the tools, what you get are the documentation, and how to use those particular tools, and what you get is JRE, that is also called as Java Runtime Environment. Now this JRE is really, really important if you want to deploy your application. See, this tools plus docs, ये दो चीजें required है for the development. But to execute your application, you need to execute your application. To execute your application, what you require is JRE, which is called as Java Runtime Environment. Now, what this Java Runtime Environment consists of? ये JRE के अंदर क्या है? So this JRE consists of rt.jar, which is the core library files of the Java, plus it consists of JVM, which is called as Java Virtual Machine. Please understand it correctly. There are three terms over here: JDK, JRE, and JVM. What do we have? JDK, JRE, and JVM. So what is JDK? What is JDK? So if you talk about JDK, JDK means Java Development Kit. What is JDK? JDK means Java Development Kit. What it consists of? It consists of tools, documents, and JRE. What is JRE? Java Runtime Environment. What it consists of? rt.jar and the JVM. What is JVM? Java Virtual Machine. Now let us understand each and everything about it. Let us start with the first, that is the JRE. अब JRE के अंदर ये जो दो चीजें हैं, ये rt.jar and JVM. What this rt.jar is? So rt.jar के अंदर also called as runtime jar, which consists of all the core libraries of Java. What it consists of? All the core libraries of Java. यानी कि जो बेसिक क्लासेस आपको चाहिए, जैसे अगर आपको स्ट्रिंग का रिलेटेड कुछ यूज करना है, लेट्स से अगर आपको कुछ इंटीजर, डबल, फ्लोट इनके साथ कुछ काम करना है, फाइल आईओ काम करना, फाइल के साथ कुछ काम करना है, लेट्स से अगर आपको डेट टाइम के साथ कुछ काम करना है, सो फॉर ऑल दिस जावा हैज ऑलरेडी क्रिएटेड अ लॉट ऑफ क्लासेस, और उन सभी क्लासेस को उसने कोर लाइब्रेरीज बना करके इट हैज क्रिएटेड दिस जार फाइल कॉल्ड एज द rt.jar. So for every project of Java that you're going to create, it is by default going to have this runtime jar, rt.jar. Not only that, this particular rt.jar, whatever these classes that you're going to use for the application development, So after developing the application, you want to execute that application. You want to execute that application on top of the operating system. Now, how do you execute it? Now, to execute that, you need to compile it first, and whatever the code that has been compiled, the compiled code is then passed to this JVM, that is the Java virtual machine. You cannot execute the Java's compiled code directly on top of OS. What you cannot do, actually you cannot actually execute the Java's compiled code directly onto the top of OS. Possible nahi hai. For that, you need to actually execute it on top of this, which is called as the JVM, Java Virtual Machine. And this Java Virtual Machine is responsible to convert that particular compiled code into the machine understandable code. We are going to talk about the flow of execution. I'm going to explain it to you, but this is what it is responsible. So this entire JRE, which is called as Java Runtime Environment, is responsible for execution of your Java code. आपके Java code का execution कौन responsible है? This JRE. But this particular JRE, we cannot download it individually while development. क्योंकि इसको बस use करके development नहीं हो सकता. For doing the development, you also require some tools. The tools like we require the tool like the Java C tool, which is generally a tool for compilation. Java के compilation के लिए. Also a tool like let's say the Java P tool, generally used to read the .class files. Or we could say the tool like the Java tool, which is used for the execution. So कुछ tools की भी हमें जरूरत होती है when you generally try to develop an application. So all these tools plus how to use it, उसका documentation plus JRE, this all the things are required for the development. But if you talk about deployment, application is already developed. Now I want to deploy this application on the client machine. Now for the application deployment, you require only the JRE. आपके पास सिर्फ JRE होना चाहिए. You do not require the JDK. JDK, it is the development kit. JRE, it is the runtime environment. So development kit required for the development, runtime environment required for only the execution. यानी कि कोड बन चुका है, कंपाइल हो चुका है. Now we just want to execute it. So for execution, runtime environment. For development, it's the development kit. So right now we are developing the applications. That's why we require the entire JDK. Suppose you have developed the application और अब जाकर के किसी client machine के ऊपर you want to install it. कोई भी आपका client होगा. Now onto the client machine you want to let's say execute the Java application. You can just download the JRE on that machine. आपको सिर्फ JRE उस machine के ऊपर download करना है. That's it. You can execute your code और वो code वहां पे execute होगा. You don't need to compile it once again. That's what the entire system is. That's what we are downloading right now. इसलिए हम लोग यहाँ पे JDK डाउनलोड करें. Why we are downloading the JDK? Because we are the developers now. We are going to develop those applications. Now, once this entire installation is completed, now it's time to create that particular application, create that particular hello world, and let us try to understand how the Java works. यानी कि पहले एक class बनाएंगे. We are going to write down the hello world application into it, and we are going to compile it. We are going to execute it, and let us understand the entire flow of execution. Let us start with it. But so far, any questions into this? क्या इसमें कुछ confusion है? Any confusion into this? Is it clear what the JDK is? You are going to do it today. I'm going to anyhow share the notes to you. आपको आज एक link मिल जाएगी. I'm going to share that Git repository link to you, which is going to be a public repository for first 4 days, and then the repository is going to be private later on. What JVM contains? JVM is generally the Java virtual machine. उस virtual machine का architecture we are going to talk about it. हम लोग बात जरूर करेंगे, but just wait for it. So maybe today we are going to talk about it on abstract level part. तो थोड़ा सा हम लोग abstract level के ऊपर discussion करेंगे, and maybe later on we are also going to talk about in detail about the JVM architecture. तो उसका architecture actually में आपके syllabus में है. We are going to talk about it. ठीक है? So अभी रुको. So first let us compile a code. Let us execute that code, and then we are going to understand the flow of execution. उसमें हम लोग JVM का in detail थोड़ा सा बात करेंगे. Yes. Any other questions? No. Fine. Which are the tools used? We are going to use these two tools today, Java C and Java. ये दो tools use करेंगे. जावा पी आई विल शो इट टू यू आफ्टर फ्यू डेज, यानी कि जब हम डॉट क्लास फाइल्स को पढ़ना है, सो एट दैट टाइम आई विल शो यू द जावा पी। Also along with this we have also a tool called as a jar tool, यानी कि अगर मुझे jar files को create करना है, java archive files, so even this there is a tool that we have available with us. बहुत सारे ऐसे tools हैं. Maybe I can actually show it to you. Not today, maybe कल परसों दिखाता हूँ. Actually today it is not required, यानी कि it will be like too complex for you on the day one itself. So like when I'm going to show you how the code can be compiled later on, creating the src bin, कैसे उन tools को use किया जा सकता है, at that time I will be explaining it to you where the tools are being kept. यानी कि जब हम लोग Java P तक आएंगे, at that time I will show it to you where the tools are being kept. वो मैं उस वक्त दिखाऊंगा. Do not worry. Yes. Any other questions so far? Any questions? Fine. If no any questions, then let us go ahead. Now let us talk about how to create the particular Java application, how to execute it. Then we will talk about the entire flow of execution, and then we will talk about what that JVM is. And again, part by part. Let me tell you one more thing. Like because we have a good number of days in our hand, यानी कि हमारे पास काफी अच्छे खासे दिन हैं. So we are going to understand each and every concept a bit up to somewhat internals about it. यानी कि थोड़ा थोड़ा internals तक भी जा करके थोड़ा थोड़ा, not too much of it. मतलब ऐसा ओवर पावर भी नहीं करेंगे इंटरनल्स का, बट एटलीस्ट हाउ मच वी कैन कवर इट अप, हम लोग थोड़ा थोड़ा इंटरनल्स में जाके भी मैं आपको दिखाने वाला हूँ. सो डू नॉट वरी ऑन इट. ठीक है. So let us start with this. Now, whatever the demo that I'm going to create right now, so that particular demo is totally optional. As I said, क्योंकि मुझे आपको दिखाना है कि इंटरनली होता क्या है. लाइक व्हेन यू आर गोइंग टू यूज एन आईडीई, तो इंटरनली आईडी आपकी क्या हेल्प करने वाला है. सो दैट इज व्हाट आई एम जस्ट गोइंग टू शो इट टू यू. So I will be creating an application, a simple hello world application, a simple hello world application in two ways, दो तरीके से. One, where I'm going to use the terminal for the compilation and execution, and the second one where I'm going to use the IDE. यानी कि दो केसेस, मैं आपको दोनों भी केसेस दिखाऊंगा. One using the terminal, another using the IDE. So let us work on it. So for this, for working with the terminal, I'm going to use the VS Code. I hope everyone knows that VS Code is an editor. It is not an IDE, it is an editor which is used to edit the files. So what I'm going to do is, inside this, I'm going to create a file. First of all, we will call it as the program.java. Hey, can you see that? The extension? The extension that I have kept is .java over here. The extension that I have kept is .java over here. Now inside this Java file, I'm going to write a Java code. I'm going to write a Java code. अब इसमें जो मैं Java code लिखने वाला हूँ, so if you are able to understand it at one go, यानी कि whatever the part that I'm writing, it is good to understand. If no, then just wait for today and tomorrow. You'll be able to understand each and every component of it. आपको समझ आएगा. You just have to wait for it, because believe me, this is Java first of all. Now when you talk about Java, Java is built on top of C++. यानी कि वो कुछ कंसेप्ट C++ के यूज कर रहे हैं. But the concern is we don't know C++. हमें C++ नहीं आता है तो. So if you don't know C++, now consider कि Java का अगर hello world लिखना है, so you should start writing the code in this way. कैसे? So first of all, you need to create a class. आपको सबसे पहले class create करना. Maybe I will call it this class as a program class. If whatever the name that you want, you can give it. What I'm going to say, this is going to be the program class. Now inside this class, you need to add the entry point function. You need to add entry point function. In Java, generally the functions are called as methods. So what you need to add is the entry point method. Now which is the entry point method? So the entry point method is generally called as main over here. How the main looks like? The main looks like this, और exactly आपको ऐसा ही लिखना है. See, this is compulsory to write the main in this way. You should be saying public static void main, and into the bracket you should pass an array of string. What you should pass? An array of string. This is the main that should be written exactly in this way. Exactly. This is Java. These rules must be followed compulsorily. So if you want to write an entry point method, the main method, it should be written inside a class. And when you're writing it inside the class, it should be written in this way by saying public static void main. Now, why inside the class? Why static? Why public? Why in this way? Each and every answer you will be getting it. You just have to wait for it. As I said, we don't know anything. We don't know anything regarding the C++. We don't know anything regarding the background of class. We don't know anything regarding the methods. That is totally fine. बस आज के दिन when you are going to write this, you must consider कि हाँ ऐसे ही मुझे लिखना है. Not only that, if I want to write the hello world, for this also you have to say it in this way. ऐसा ही लिखना है आज. So it is system dot out dot println, and into the bracket you can say this is going to be the hello world. That's it. A compulsory. Once again, let me remind you. आपको ऐसे ही लिखना है आज. You are going to write it in the same way. How? First class program, the entry point method, the main, inside which you are going to say system dot out dot println and hello world. That's it. Now, once this entire program is ready, you are going to open the terminal. There are two ways. Either you can open the command prompt or you can open the inbuilt terminal. आप दोनों भी use कर सकते हो. I'm going to use the inbuilt terminal. Even inside this, you have two options. Yeah, let me show it to you. अगर आप यहाँ पे नोटिस करोगे, supposedly you are using a VS Code, and if you are familiar with the VS Code, it's totally fine. If not, आप फोल्डर स्ट्रक्चर में जाकर के वहां से कमांड प्रॉम्प्ट भी ओपन कर सकते हो. बट दिस पर्टिकुलर एग्जांपल इज टोटली ऑप्शनल. जनरली अगर मैं नहीं भी दिखाऊंगा डायरेक्टली आई कैन गो फॉर एन आईडी, इट इज आल्सो टोटली फाइन. But I generally show it to the students to tell them what IDE is internally doing it for you, यानी कि which are the efforts that IDE is taking for you. तो ये वो efforts है जो IDE आपके लिए लेने वाला है. So that is what I'm trying to show it to you. So let's open a command prompt. Again, this example is totally optional. अगर आप करना चाहते हो कर सकते हो, otherwise it's totally optional for you. यानी कि आज आप करके देखना चाहते हो, it's totally optional for you. Open that particular command prompt, and inside this command prompt you can start giving up the commands. आप यहाँ पे commands दे सकते हो. So first of all, I need to compile this code. If you want to compile this code, the command is javac. The command is javac. This is a tool that we are talking about. So as we discussed, ये जो tool दिख रहा है आपको javac, this is a tool that we are using. So you have to say javac. Hey, what do you need to compile? You need to compile this file called as the program.java. What you are trying to do? You are trying to compile this particular file. Which file? The program.java file. Which file? The program.java file. Now, when you are going to compile this file, please observe the directory structure over here. If you observe, we have this day01 help.md file, which is the MD file that I am showing it to you right now, जो कि हमारी ये notes वाली file है. So do not consider this. But look at this .java file that I have created. Now, there is only one .java file. There is only one program.java file. Now, if I compile this code, see which particular file is created now. The moment I'm going to compile it, hit enter, it is going to compile this code and one more file will be created. Are you able to see this? एक और file create हुई. देखिए कुछ file. Now this file is called as the dot class file. This file is called as the dot class file. Every single particular code, the Java code you are going to compile, if there is a class inside it, then a dot class file will be created for it. For every single class in the .java file, a dot class file will be created. And this particular dot class file, we have to use it to execute it on top of JVM. This dot class file, यानी कि इस dot class file का नाम हमें use करना है for its execution onto the JVM. Now, how do I execute it? So, उसको execute करने के लिए, to execute it, I am going to say Java. See, this is a tool now. Once again, this is the second tool I am using. So Java C is also a tool and Java is also a tool. This is the tool that I'm using now. ये Java वाला tool. And use this tool for the program execution. Now, how do you execute it? To execute it, give the name of the dot class file. Wait, what is the name of the dot class file? The name of the dot class file is program. Hit enter and it says hello world. Can you see that? What you have executed is your program. So what you did was you created a particular file called as program.java. आपने एक program.java file create किया. Whatever the program.java that you have created, you just compiled it. For compilation, Which tool you have used? You have used the tool called as the JavaC. You said JavaC, whatever is the name of the file was program.java. So after compilation, what you got? After compilation, you got a program.class file. So for execution, you have to use that program.class file, and to execute it, you are going to use a tool called as the Java tool. So say Java, and this is going to be the name of the .class file. So maybe into the bracket I can say name of .class file to execute. Name of the .class file to execute. That's what it is. So what we have got is like we have got this particular program.java. For compilation, we are using JavaC. Name of the .java file. What it is? It is the name of .java file. What it is? Name of .java file. So after the compilation, what we get is the program.class file. And whatever is the program.class file, for execution, what we say? Java and the name of the .class file. That's what we get. Let me know. Is this entire thing clear to you so far? क्या ये सारी चीजें clear है पहले? Now, whatever we did this part, this entirely each and everything is going to be done by your IDE. ये पूरा का पूरा आपका IDE करके देने वाला है, but this is something that we are trying to understand what it internally does. Let me know. Clear so far? We created class program, and upon compilation, it is necessary to give class name as the. I will come to it, Anish. That is it mandatory for us to give the name of the .java file and the name of this particular class same? वो कौन से cases में same रखना है? All this we are going to talk about it, but not. This is not the right time that we talk about it, but we are going to talk about it. Let me give you a question. हाँ, वर्षा. Okay, sorry. I think someone got unmuted. Can we use IntelliJ IDEA? Yes, you can, Aishwarya. No problem into it. As I said, there is no restriction on any IDEs. I'm using STS because I use it even for the advanced Java. That's why I'm going to stick for it. But you can use any IDE that you want. There is no restriction on the IDEs that you want to use. No restriction, as I said. Correct? We will make use of Java P. करेंगे ना, लेकिन for using that Java P, first we need to understand what is the .class file. Why we need to use it, what it actually does. मतलब बहुत सारी चीजें हैं. First we need to understand, then we are going to use it. हम लोगों ने वैसे jar भी use नहीं किया. That's what. So wait for it. We are going to use. These are just few of the tools. ऐसे बहुत सारे tools हैं. As I said, there are a lot of tools like this. मैंने सिर्फ 4 लिखे हैं, but there are a lot of tools like this that we get. हाँ. Any other questions so far? Whatever I have written the steps over here into this. Any other questions? Again, please note, I will mention it. This demo is optional. This demo is optional. As I said, I'm showing it to you what that ID does. Generally, whenever you learn Java, you have been taught directly with the help of IDs. Very rarely generally people show you कि internally ऐसा कुछ होता है. So this is what generally the compilation, after compilation happens. ऐसा करने वाले भी काफी कम होते हैं. So again, as I'm saying, this is optional. This is not something that you should understand immediately on day one. You can actually start working with Java, and later on, जैसे आपको time मिलेगा, you can actually explore this. No tension to understand it on the day one itself. ठीक है? Let me know. At least you have got to know कि हाँ ऐसा कुछ होने वाला है. I'm going to show it to you. Do not worry. मैं दिखाता भी हूँ कैसे simple है. So nothing has to be done like this. ऐसा कुछ करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. I'm going to show it to you. But yes, have you understood so far? Yes, very good. Now let me do one thing. Let me create the same application, same Hello World application using an particular STS. मैं आपको वो भी करके दिखाता हूँ. And then we will talk about the entire flow. .class can be used on internet. Yes, that can be used definitely. So now for this, I'm going to open up an STS. मैं STS को open करता हूँ. That's the Spring Tool Suite 4. I'm using it again. I'm repeating, not to be used compulsorily on your machines. If you have already existing IDs, you use those IDs. If you are comfortable with another IDs, you use those IDs. I'm comfortable with STS. I will go for it. Okay. So no restriction on IDs. So first of all, the first thing that you have to use is a workspace. It is called as a workspace. So workspace is a directory into which you are going to store your projects. So for example, right now, my workspace that I want to choose is, let's say it is like this, where I'm not into the this one. So maybe I can say for the courses, for the modular, it is core Java 016. That's your batch. And into your batch, I have created a directory called as the day 01. अब डे 01 के अंदर व्हाट आई कैन क्रिएट आर मल्टीपल प्रोजेक्ट्स. Similarly, suppose tomorrow, if I want to create multiple projects for day 2, so I will choose a directory called as a day 2 directory within this core Java 16. And this workspace is a directory which is going to hold multiple different projects. Now, within that, you can create the separate folders as I am creating. So this workspace is like trying to organize your code pretty much in a better way. ये सिर्फ कोड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के लिए आप वर्कस्पेस को चूज करोगे. Generally, you should be choosing a workspace into the directory where do you want to store the code. ये आपने चूज करना चाहिए. For every single time you launch a particular, we could say an IDE, you should choose a proper workspace. So I am choosing this day 1. So this is core Java 16. That's your batch. And into this core Java 16, this is the day 1 as a workspace. I am going to choose it today. मैं आज इसको choose करने वाला. Now, when I'm going to choose this one, I'm going to say launch. And after the launch, you just have to wait for a minute. If you are using an STS, just wait for a minute to make this particular day 01 as a workspace inside this STS. यानी कि ये कुछ उसके settings वगैरह उसके अंदर add करेगा and it is going to create it. Maybe I can show it to you into the VS Code also. You will be able to see कि जैसे मैंने उसको workspace ऐसे choose किया है, the moment I have chosen it as a workspace, you will find it out. It has added a folder called as a .metadata folder. हाँ, हमें कुछ उसका डिलीट या फिर उसको रखना ही है, उसके अंदर कुछ जाके चेंजेस करना है. वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू डू एनीथिंग, बट दिस मेटाडेटा इज समथिंग दैट ट्राइज टू स्टोर द सेटिंग्स ऑफ दोज वर्कस्पेस. जैसे मैंने डे 1 को चूज किया, सो डे 1 के रिगार्डिंग में जो भी सेटिंग्स सब परफॉर्म करूंगा उस वर्कस्पेस के अंदर, नाउ दोज आर गोइंग टू बी स्टोर्ड विद इन दिस फोल्डर कॉल्ड एज दिस मेटाडेटा फोल्डर. So now let's say the workspace is going to be launched आज के दिन में. Yes, it will take a minute so as to make that directory as a workspace for this stage, and then it is going to be launched. So let it launch. So because it is the first day, I have kept it closed. मैंने इसको open करके नहीं रखा, but from tomorrow I'm going to keep this as the launched workspace itself. So here I'm going to just minimize whatever the windows that I don't require. तो यहाँ पे जितने भी सारे windows है, I'm just going to keep it minimized. Now, when I am going to start creating a project, I have two ways of creating it. So first, you can just click over here by saying create a Java project like this, or you can click on this file, you can click on new, and you can click on Java project. Look at this. You have two options. Either click on the link directly over there, or you can say new. This is going to be a new Java project. Now, in this new Java project, it will ask you for some details. Specifically, it will ask you for a project name. You can give any project name over there. I'm going to say that's going to be demo 01. Not only that, it asks you that which GRE you want to consider. यानी कि आपको कौन से particular rt.jar को use करना है and which particular version of Java you are targeting. And as I said, we are going to target the Java 1.8 version. That is the Java 8 that we are going to target. Do not change the version. Do not go for higher versions, because in those versions, the earlier particular classes are deprecated. Some of the methods are deprecated. You might not be able to use them. आप उनको use नहीं कर पाओगे. And that is why I would recommend to stick to Java SC 1.8. You just stick to it and then you are going to click on finish. आप बस finish के ऊपर click कर. So remember the steps. The steps are like when you go for an ID, you are going to click on new project. After you click on new project, give a name to it, demo 01, and whatever the name that you give, choose the version, the correct version. Can you observe the version now? What it says, the version is Java SC 1.8. This is the version that you should be working with. Now, once it is done, you are going to create that particular class and the same class, the program class, and you are going to execute it. So for this, again, click on SRC, right click on SRC. SRC stands for the source directory. Click on SRC, say new. This is going to be a class. आप यहाँ पे जाके लिखो class. Okay, what is the name of the class? The name of the class was program. Now inside this class, do you require the main? तो अगर आपको main चाहिए, you just have to click on this. Can you see that? You don't even have to type it. आपको सिर्फ यहाँ पे जाके क्लिक करना है and click on finish. The moment you click on finish, you will be able to see the code where the font is a bit smaller. Can you see that? उसका font जो है वो काफी छोटा है. So what I can say is I can press Control plus plus, which will increase the font. आप ऐसे भी increase कर सकते हो, or you can go into the Windows preferences, click on, we could say, font. Font के अंदर you can click into the basics. आप basics में नीचे जा करके once again text font and you can choose that particular font. जो font आपको चाहिए you can choose that. This is 26. I will say gold, bold, and then I can say apply and close. And if you do that, so this is the font that you will be able to see. यानी कि because this is an ID, you can do a lot of settings out there. तो जो भी आपको settings करना है आप settings यहाँ पे कर सकते हो. Now this is what I have done. I have applied this particular setting where I'm able to set the particular font and make it a bit bold so that it is properly visible to all of you. Now inside this, I'm going to write the same code, that is system.out.println, system.out.println. I will type it like this, inside which I'm going to say hello world, like this. Now if you remember, we have actually compiled this code earlier. यानी कि हम लोगों ने कहा कि Java C and the name of this particular file which got compiled created a dot class file. But here we don't need to compile. There to execute, we said Java name of the dot class file. Even here you don't have to give any commands. What you need to do is you just need to press a button. Can you see that there is a button to run this? So entire compilation and each and everything is going to be done by this IDE itself. You just click this button, run. It will ask you where do you want to run this. So this is a Java application. So click on Java application, click on OK, and it is going to show you the hello world into the console. Are you able to see that? This is what it is being shown. Let me know, is this hello world clear? Inside main string args, later we were using main string args. Yes, that's the syntax of Java that is so much flexible. यानी कि ये जो आपको array का subscript दिख रहा है, so this can be used over here. Look at that. This can be used over here, or this can be used after this identifier. I hope you know that this is an identifier. ये args क्या है? This is an identifier. Identifier कुछ भी हो सकता है, arr हो सकता है, args हो सकता है, it can be anything. So in Java, the subscript can be written after this ARR or it can be written after this data type. Both the syntaxes are valid. इसलिए मैंने दोनों versions रखा है. In my version, I have kept it after this one, and in this version, I have kept it before this one. So दोनों भी syntaxes are valid. Yes. Any other questions? Is it simple to use an IDE? Because into the IDE, you just have to choose a workspace, write a class, and just click on a run button. Are we doing this part now? As I said, are we doing this part? Are we compiling it? Are we looking at any dot class files? No. What we are doing is we are just writing the files. We are just clicking on the run button and it executes it. हाँ, internally वो यही काम कर रहा है. Internally your STS is doing the same job. So what it does is it compiles the code and it executes it. It does the same thing. But let me know first, is how to execute a hello world code. Is it clear so far? Execution of hello world program in both the ways, through terminal and through IDE. Very good. Now, if this is clear, let us understand the flow of execution. Let us understand the flow of execution. Now, there are a lot of things that we are going to talk about. See, understanding the first program in Java, it is bit more overwhelming, I could say. यानी कि बहुत सारे concepts उसके अंदर आप आने वाले हैं, and there are a lot of things that we need to understand and we need to be sorted out. Some of the things are going to be repeated, यानी कि मैं आगे आगे भी cases में इसको repeat करने वाला हूँ. That do you remember when we compiled this code, ये create हुआ था, so this was it. ये repeat होने वाला है. But for the very first time when you're going to listen to it, there are a lot of concepts into it. Lot of things are happening behind the scenes. और ये सारी चीजें आप हमें थोड़ी थोड़ी समझनी है. So let us begin with it. So when you generally execute any particular Java code, so before the execution, the first thing that we require is the compilation of this code. So suppose like this is the .java file. that we have, or maybe I can say, I will keep it over here. There are, let's say, 3 files. Maybe I can say one.java, one.java. There is one more file, we could say two.java, and there is one more file, let's say three.java. Let's say there are three.java files. Three.java files. Inside the first one.java, there is a class called as the one class. In two.java, there is a class called as the two class, and there is a class called as a three class in Java, in this .java file. Now, whatever the name of the classes are, listen to it. Whatever the name of the classes are, after the compilation, the dot class file will be having the same name as that of the class. The dot class file will be having the same name as that of the class name. File name कुछ भी हो, doesn't matter. Suppose the name of the file over here is program.java, लेकिन उसके अंदर class का नाम क्या है? Class का नाम है 3. What will be the name of the dot class file? So the name of the dot class file over here is going to be 3.class. Remember this. Let's say this is the Java compiler. Let's say what we have is Java compiler, Java C. So when I'm going to pass this particular one.java, two.java, let me say one.java, two.java, and we could say program.java. So from this Java C, there are going to be three dot class files that will be created. Yeah, how many dot class files will be created? 3. हर एक class के लिए, for every single class, a dot class file will be created. So if we have a class called as a 1, there will be a dot class file created like this, one dot class. If there is a class called as a 2, then there will be a dot class file that will be created called as a 2 dot class. Okay, but tell me, for this particular class 3, what will be the name of the dot class file now? Is it program dot class or is it 3 dot class? Okay, what it is going to be? Or is it program dot class or is it 3 dot class? It is going to be 3 dot class. What it is going to be? 3 dot class. That means this dot class files after the compilation that are been created is created based on the name of the class and not on the name of the file. वो फाइल के नेम के ऊपर क्लास नहीं क्रिएट होता है. The class is always created on the name of what? On the name of what? On the name of what? On the name of the class name. वो जो क्लास का नाम जो रहेगा उसके बेसिस पे वो बने. Let me show it to you. यहाँ पे दिखाता हूँ. So for example, if you have observed, here the name of the .java file was program, और जो create हुआ वो program dot class. क्यों? Because the name of the class was program. Now what I will do is I will delete this program dot class file. इसको delete करते हैं, ठीक है? Sorry, मैंने गलती से program dot java को ही delete मार दिया. So maybe I can say Control Z. Let me delete that program dot class file. So maybe I can say delete, and that's it. Now there is only one file, that is program.java file, and this program.java के अंदर I will change the name of this class from program to, let's say, test. From this program to, let's say, test. So let's go over here, program to test. Now tell me, if I compile this particular code, can you tell me what will be the output of it? What will be the name of the dot class file for it? बता सकते हो? If I compile this code right now, if you can check this out, there is this program.java file that I have. मेरे पास program.java file है, and inside this program.java file I have a class called as a test. वहाँ पे class का नाम क्या है? Test. There is no any class called as a program now. So if I compile this particular code, what do you think? What will be the name of the dot class file? चलो fast. Java C. I am going to compile this file. Compilation के दौरान we have to give the name of the .java file. So if I compile this, very good. The name of the dot class file will be, it is going to be test.class. Can you observe this? What is the name of the dot class file? The name of the dot class file is test.class. Now, if I want to execute this code, what I need to write the command? Can you tell me what is the command? Command for execution? Command for execution. It is Java. Yes, Java. Name of the, very good, name of the dot class file. So name of the dot class file is test. क्या यहाँ पे इसके आगे मुझे एक्सटेंशन देने की जरूरत है डॉट क्लास? नो. while executing while executing only give the name of the dot class file without any extension. यहाँ पे इसका जो भी डॉट क्लास फाइल एक्सटेंशन है वो देने की जरूरत नहीं है. सो जस्ट से जावा टेस्ट, हिट एंटर. अरे इज इट रनिंग दिस हेलो वर्ल्ड नाउ? यस, that's what it is. So remember, dot class files are created looking at the name of the classes that you have and not at the file name. तो file name कुछ भी हो फर्क नहीं पड़ता, but the name of the class should be the name of the class is responsible for creating the dot class file. तो dot class file हमेशा class के names को देख के बनती है. Second, can I have one more class over here? Maybe we will call this class as class 1. How many classes do we have inside a single .java file? How many classes do we have right now inside a single .java file? Answer me. How many files, how many classes do we have inside a single .java file? So there are right now this class, let's say test, and this class 1. How many? There are 2 classes. So if I compile this code, how many dot class files are going to be created? If I compile this code, how many dot class files will be created? 1 or 2? चलो, few have answered correctly, few have answered incorrectly. Please observe, ये observation की चीज है. So let me compile this code now once again. So this is going to be javac program.java, name of the .java file. Compile this and now tell me how many dot class files are created. ये देखो जरा, how many dot class files will be created? There are these 2 dot class files. How many dot class files will be created? 2 dot class files. One is one dot class and another is test dot class. That means number of classes that you have, exactly those number of dot class files will be created. Or I will write down a statement for every single class that is declared, Java will create a dot class file for it. For every single class that is declared, यानी कि हर एक क्लास जो डिक्लेयर हुआ है. So for every single file, what Java will create? Java will create a dot class file for it. Now whatever the dot class file is created, you can execute that dot class file if it has a main method. If it has a main method, जरा check करो. Can I also have a main method like public static void main inside this class 1 also? Yes, I will say hello world from 1. I can say it in this. So can I have multiple main methods into multiple different classes? Yes. I try to compile it. अब जरा check करो. I'm going to compile this code javac program.java. How many dot class files will be created? 2 dot class files will be created. कौन से? एक test and दूसरा 1 dot class. If I'm going to execute this, जरा check करो. I'm going to say Java execute this. Java test. Can I execute this test? Yes. What it says? Hello world. Can I execute this one? Say Java 1, execute it. Is it saying hello world from 1? Yes. So there is no restriction onto how many classes you can have and how many times you can keep the main method inside it. For every particular class, an individual dot class file is created, and every single individual dot class file you can execute it if it has got the entry point method. अगर उसके पास entry point method है, you can start executing it. That's what is the benefit of using the Java. That's how it works. So let me know whether you have understood this concept or not. Again, not immediately needs to be getting confused a lot. जितना आप यहाँ पे grasp कर सकोगे, only grasp that much. Not necessary to worry upon कि ये नहीं समझोगे तो कुछ नहीं आएगा. No, it is not like this. It is just, as I said, bit internals that I'm trying to discuss with you, that I'm trying to show it to you, so that if someone are also a bit experienced, even he will get the answer, and someone who is willing to go a bit into the internals, even he will get those answers. यानी कि like considering all the particular different variations of the students, I'm trying to show you these particular concepts. Not at all necessary for the first timers who are looking at it. अगर नहीं भी समझ आया, that is totally okay. इसकी वजह से ऐसा नहीं होगा कि आप कभी डेवलपमेंट सीख ही नहीं पाओगे. No. But if you understood it, really good. You have got really good grasping capability. So let me know. Have you got this concept so far? Correct. But जैसे other languages में you cannot have multiple main functions. It is not like that now. You can have as many main methods as you want into the different classes, and you can exactly execute those particular classes. Exactly execute those particular main methods. आप वो भी कर सकते हो. How many main functions can be inserted in class? एक ही. तुलसीराम एक ही. Because you cannot have, we could say, multiple methods with same name and same signature inside the same class. तो वो एज अ लैंग्वेज के अंदर ही अलाउड नहीं है. उसे कहा जाता है फंक्शन और मेथड रीडेफिनेशन हो जाएगा. सो एक ही क्लास के अंदर मल्टीपल मेन्स आर नॉट अलाउड. मल्टीपल क्लासेस के अंदर मल्टीपल मेन मेथड्स आर अलाउड. दैट इज अलाउड. यस. एनी अदर क्वेश्चन? Are you guys getting those things now? Are you getting how the Java is? Believe me, it is really the one of the best language that you can learn. Simple भी है, थोड़ा अच्छा भी लगता है. We need to understand, we need to get to understand a lot of things over there. और मजा भी आता है. That's what the language is like. Yes. Any questions so far? No? Fine. Enough serious. Now, whatever this one dot class, two dot class, and three dot class that we have created so far, अगर आपने यहाँ पे देखा भी होगा, so whether it's a test, whether it's a one file, whatever it is there, so ये जो भी particular dot class files यहाँ पे create हो चुके हैं, now I need to execute it. So what do you think when you say it like this, Java 1 or Java test, whatever you are going to execute, where are you executing it? Is it like directly you are executing it on top of OS? क्या आप इसको directly on top of operating system execute करें? जैसे for example, if you talk about the C programming, so in the C, you generally say it like this: gcc, whatever is the name of the file. Let's say it is main.c. What it gives out is the a.out, and you directly say /a.out. If you are onto the Linux, if you are onto the Windows, you just say a.exe. यानी कि आप एग्जीक्यूट करते वक्त डायरेक्टली उसका एग्जीक्यूटेबल फाइल आप एग्जीक्यूट कर देते हो. कहां पे? डायरेक्टली ऑन टॉप ऑफ ओएस, डायरेक्टली ऑन टॉप ऑफ ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम. बट इफ यू आर इन जावा, if you are using Java, then you do not execute this dot class file directly on top of OS. Nahi. These dot class files needs to be executed on top of JVM. On top of what? On top of JVM. Okay, what is JVM? What is JVM? It's Java Virtual Machine. What is JVM? It's Java Virtual Machine. So all these dot class files needs to be loaded inside this JVM, and this JVM is going to produce the CPU understandable code. What this is going to create? This is going to create the machine understandable code and will be executed on top of operating system. On top of operating system. यानी कि ये अब आपके OS के ऊपर execute होगा. So where the dot class files are executed? The dot class files will be executed inside this JVM. What is JVM? Java Virtual Machine. Now, because of this JVM, listen to it. Because of this JVM, Java is considered as portable. Java is considered as portable. Because of who? Because of JVM. Now, what is portable? Portable in the sense, Java's code once compiled, that means once a dot class file is created, you can just copy this dot class file and you can execute it directly on any machine. बस उस machine के ऊपर क्या होना चाहिए? JVM. JVM in the sense, what that machine should have is your Java runtime environment. Now imagine it. If you are working with C and C++, every single time you want to execute it on a different machine, on that machine, you have to compile that code once again, because that is platform dependent code. Your Java code that you are going to create is going to be the platform independent code. That means you can write that entire code on Mac OS or you can write that code onto the Linux and you can execute the same code directly into the Windows. You don't even need to compile it. You just need to compile it once on any platform. On किसी भी platform के ऊपर उसको compile करो and you can execute it on any other platforms. Now this is possible because of this Java virtual machine. So what you need is to download this JRE on that particular system. So जैसे अगर मैंने Windows में कुछ लिखा हुआ कोड है, I want to execute it onto the Mac OS, it is totally fine. I just need the JRE for the Mac. यानी कि मुझे Mac के लिए सिर्फ JRE डाउनलोड करना पड़ेगा, that's it. Because of which generally Java is considered as portable. Not only that, it is considered that Java works onto the VORA. That is, write once, run anywhere. It works on the terminology called as VORA, which says write once, run anywhere. Write once, run anywhere. That's what the Java is. JVM will be the one to convert it to the lower. Yes, correct. So what JVM does is JVM understands this dot class file and converts it into the CPU code. CPU code में क्या होता है? So it is like your 010101. So it can be your binary code, it can be your assembly code. Generally, it's directly the operating system, or we could say it is directly the CPU code, which is the binary code. Now, when you talk about this particular JVM, so what this JVM understand is this bytecode. ये JVM को क्या समझ आता है? JVM understands this bytecode. This dot class files that you have, all these dot class files consists of this bytecode. इन dot class files के पास क्या है? इन dot class files के पास है bytecode. What is this bytecode? Bytecode is the intermediate code that has been generated after compiling the .java file. So when your Java code compiles, what it generates is a bytecode that is kept into its individual dot class files. हर एक क्लास का bytecode generate होगा और उसके individual dot class files में इसको रखा जाएगा. Now these bytecodes is understandable only by the JVM. यानी कि JVM को क्या समझ आता है? Only bytecode, nothing else. If the dot class file consists of a bytecode, now this JVM can understand it and can convert it to the relevant CPU understandable code. That's what the JVM is, and that's how it works. Let me know, is this entire flow of program clear to you? What it does? All the .java files, compile it, will be converting into the dot class file. वो dot class files में convert हो जाएंगे. Whatever the dot class files are loaded inside the JVM, and the JVM will convert it to the CPU understandable code. All the dot class file consists of the bytecode, and the JVM understands only the bytecode. Only the bytecode. आप ऐसे नहीं कर सकते that I'm going to create a particular class like this. I'm going to create a file like this, program dot class. आप एक dot class file बना के उसको दोगे, JVM will not understand it. JVM will directly say that this dot class file is not readable. इस dot class files को मैं read नहीं कर सकता. Because the dot class file should have only and only the bytecode, which is an intermediate code created after compilation of this .java files. That's what it is. Let me know. Any questions so far? Any questions into the JVM and how it works? No? How the bytecode of hello world look like? This is how it looks like. यहाँ पे आप actually dot class files को open भी कर सकते हो. Can you see that? One dot class. You open this up. That's the bytecode. ये देखो bytecode. Can you see that? Source code is decompiled from a dot class file using ये particular decompiler और ये आपको दिख भी रहा है. That's how it looks like. But it's an intermediate code. इसको समझने के लिए सिर्फ JVM को वो instruction set उस JVM के पास है. बाकी rest we are not there to actually work on it. It is like after compilation जो assembly code generate होता है. So हमें assembly code नहीं आता है. That's why we are writing the entire code into the C, or we are writing the code into the C++. हाँ हमें assembly आता तो मैं शायद assembly में code लिखता. It is the same way. I know how to write the code in Java. I don't know how to write the code in bytecode. So that's why that's an intermediate code. We don't even have to worry about it. We just have to write the Java code. That's how it is. Fine. Any other questions so far? Chalo. Now I will ask you the question and immediately you have to answer it. Again, these are the interview questions. So chalo, pehla question. So how many dot class files will be created? Question mark. How will you answer this question? How many dot class files will be created? How will you answer this question? Very good. So the answer will be as many number of classes are created, those many dot class files will be created. यानी कि जितने नंबर ऑफ क्लासेस आपके होंगे, डिपेंडिंग ऑन हाउ मेनी नंबर ऑफ क्लासेस यू हैव, दोज मेनी डॉट क्लास फाइल्स विल बी क्रिएटेड. ठीक है. सेकंड क्वेश्चन, हाउ मेनी मेन्स we can define in a single class? Very good. We can define only one main inside a single .java file, or we could say how many entry point main के अंदर, ये भी लिख देता हूं, entry point method we can define in a single class, only one main. Question, how many main we can define in a single .java file? How many main? Again, the entry point method we can define in a single .java file. How will you answer it? Very good. You can define as many main methods. You can just say we can define main method in every single class. What we can define? We can define main method in every single class. So as many classes we want in .java file, we can define as many class we want in single .java file. In single .java file, we can define the main in them. That's it. As simple as this. यानी कि ये सभी जितने बेसिक क्वेश्चंस है regarding how many ways we can create the classes, how many ways we can define a particular .java file, all those generally questions that have been asked, these are the answers for it. Just remember that. Let me know, are these concepts so far clear to you? क्या ये सभी concepts clear हैं? Any questions so far? Let me know. Very good. Now let us talk about the class and object. Hello world already हो चुका है. Maybe should we be going for this or no? Let me think. देखते हैं. Significance of multiple, नहीं, significance as such कुछ नहीं है. So it can be used only for the testing purpose. Like suppose मैंने एक मेन के अंदर ऑलरेडी कुछ टेस्ट फंक्शन लिख के रखा है एंड आई वांट टू कीप द टेस्ट फंक्शन एज इट इज एंड आई वांट अ सेपरेट टेस्ट फंक्शन दैट नीड्स टू बी स्टार्टेड वंस अगेन फ्रॉम स्क्रैच. सो मैं एक और टेस्ट फंक्शन मेन बना करके रख सकता हूँ. सिमिलर लाइक दिस आई कैन क्रिएट मल्टीपल टेस्ट फंक्शंस, और जो टेस्ट फंक्शंस मुझे टेस्ट करना है आई कैन जस्ट एग्जीक्यूट द सेम मेन. तो वैसे मैं उसको टेस्ट कर सकता हूँ. दैट्स द ओनली सिग्निफिकेंस आती है. ओके. Is main in case? Yes, definitely. Main method ऐसा ही होना चाहिए. You cannot keep it in capital. You cannot start the name with M capital. No, it should be everything in small case. This is the method that should be written. There is a reason behind it. There's a reason behind it. So for that you have to wait for it. थोड़ा सा wait करना पड़ेगा. I will be telling you what's the reason. यानी कि क्यों ऐसा ही लिखा गया. As I said, public ही क्यों, static ही क्यों, void ही क्यों, why string like this arguments, ये सारी चीजें I'm going to tell it to you, but you have to wait for it. But yes, so far. Any other questions? No? Fine. Now I'm going to talk about this JVM in a bit shorter way. यानी कि काफी brief में I'm going to just talk about it. काफी short में. And later on, maybe on day 7th or day 8, I don't know exactly कि कैसे हमारा syllabus cover होगा, but like day 7 or day 8, we will talk about this JVM architecture. हम लोग पूरे JVM architecture की बात करेंगे. Right now, all the important things that are required for starting the program, rest जो भी मुझे काम करना है, for that, whatever are the parts that are required from the JVM, so that I'm going to discuss now. So inside this particular JVM, when you talk about this JVM, inside this JVM, the first part that we have, there are total three parts. The first part that we have, it is called as class loading subsystem. Class loading subsystem. Now, what this class loading subsystem is, कि हम लोग in detail में बाद में बात करेंगे. So this class loading subsystem is necessary for loading all the dot class files. So what it is responsible for? Loading dot class files. That's what a class loading subsystem is required. Loading all the dot class files. Again, not necessary to talk about it right now. अभी उसके बारे में बात करने की जरूरत नहीं. The one important thing that is required over here for me is the memory areas. And at last, the third component, that is your execution engine. Execution engine. TION, execution. So these two particular things are really important for me to understand it. Out of this, into the memory areas, there are actually 5 different memory areas. Starting from, we could say, the method area, the Java stack, the Java heap, and 2 more, which are actually not necessary again right now. ऐसे immediately वो वैसे समझना important नहीं है, but yes, 2 more. So there are 5 memory areas. Inside the execution engine, we have again 2 components. One is called as the interpreter, another is, let's say, garbage collector. We will talk about it. Memory areas पहला यहाँ पे आप complete कर दो. Memory areas, we have method area, which is again really important for us, because onto this I'm going to have a lot of discussion. Method area. Then we are going to say what we have is called as the Java stack. And the third one that we have is, we could say, the Java heap. So these 3 areas are really important for me: method area, Java stack and Java heap, क्योंकि ये मुझे आगे प्रोग्रामिंग में लगने वाला है. So I want to discuss about these memory areas, how the memory gets allocated. So ये सारा discussion होने वाला है. There are 2 more. One is called as native method stack, and there is something called as a PC register. Again, at the time of JVM architecture, when we are going to study JVM architecture, so at that time I'm going to discuss about it. तो वहां पे मैं ये सारी चीजें बताऊंगा, आज नहीं बताऊंगा. So today it is only important to understand that what we have is JVM. JVM consists of this class loading subsystem responsible to load all the .class files. Second, memory areas, where the memory allocation generally happens. Out of which 3 we are going to talk about: method area, Java stack, and Java heap. Again, the rest 2 are not required over here. And then finally, we have the execution engine. What this execution engine consists of? Execution engine consists of 2 components. One is called as the interpreter, and another called as, we could say, the garbage collector. One is called as interpreter, and another is called as, we could say, garbage collector, GC. The interpreter is responsible to interpret the bytecode and convert it into the CPU understandable code. यानी कि ये जो हम कह रहे थे bytecodes को समझना and convert it to the CPU code, who is exactly doing it? So the interpreter is doing it. And this garbage collector is actually responsible to clear all the dynamically created objects in Java. यानी कि जब आप Java में बात करोगे, all the objects that are going to be created, all these objects are going to be created dynamically. So whatever the dynamically created objects are, all those are going to be cleared whenever they go out of scope, are going to be cleared by this GC. by this GC, that is the garbage collector. So this is how generally the JVM is going to work. Again, JVM architecture, we are going to cover it up later on. ये पूरा in detail architecture, maybe around half an hour I'm just going to discuss कि वो internally क्या क्या है components. But आज required नहीं है because there are lot of things in Java that we haven't seen. उनको समझना भी पड़ेगा. So we will first understand it and then we will talk about this architecture. क्योंकि इस आर्किटेक्चर के अंदर कुछ ऐसी भी चीजें हैं, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू वांट टू टॉक अबाउट स्टैटिक, इफ यू वांट टू टॉक अबाउट इनिशियलाइजेशन, कि जिसके बारे में हमें अभी कुछ भी नहीं पता है. So first we will learn it into the program and then we will see how the JVM is trying to manage all this part. कि JVM internally उनको कैसे manage करता है. So for so on, whatever are the important parts, ये तीन याद रखना: method area, Java stack and Java heap, three memory areas, and two things, one is interpreter and another is garbage collector. क्योंकि ये बात में यानी कि when I'm going to discuss about some of the terms, some of the techniques that how the Java is actually doing this concept internally, so ये सारी चीजें मुझे लगेंगी. Specifically, method area, I'm going to require it when I'm going to talk about the classes, the memory allocation for the classes. Java stack, when I'm going to talk about the allocation of memory for the local variables. And Java heap, when I'm going to talk about the memory allocation for the objects. यानी कि ये तीन memory areas की मैं बात जरूर करूँगा. But for so far, what is there inside this JVM? Is it clear? What's there inside this JVM? Is it clear? Yes. जितना मैंने अभी बताया उतना ही चाहिए, not more than this. Rest, just keep some patience. I'm definitely going to talk about it. But so far, clear? Fine. Now let us go ahead and let us actually talk about the class and object. As I said, मुझे memory areas चाहिए for this discussion, इसलिए मैंने पहले बताया. Now let us talk about the class and object. Can you tell me what is a class if you know it? What is a class? What is a class? Simply, okay. Okay, very good. Template to create object, blueprint of an entity, very good. Very good, very good. फिर object क्या है? What is an object? What is an object? Real world entity, very good. So can I say it in this way? If you talk about a class, it is a logical entity. What it is? It is a logical entity. It is also called as. It is also called as. What it is called as? Blueprint of an object. Very good. What it is also called as? Blueprint of an object. That's what a class is. It consists of. Can you tell me? It consists of what? अगर आप C++ के बैकग्राउंड से आते हो, क्लास के अंदर क्या होता है? What does the class consist of? Data members and member functions. Very good. What it consists of? Data members and member functions. Can I say the data members are the ones responsible to store the data and the member functions are responsible to perform the operations? That generally represents the behavior. Yes. So can I say it consists of data and code? What it consists of? Data and code. Who stores this data? The data members. Who provides this code? The member functions. Who provides this code? The member functions. The data that has been stored, specifically if you come in Java, so the data is stored by the fields, जिन्हें C++ में data members कहा जाता है, and the code is represented by the methods. So what does a class consist of? Class consists of the fields and the methods. What does the class consist of in Java? The fields and the methods. We can say class is an example of encapsulation. Is it an example of encapsulation? Is it binding the data and code together? Is the class binding the data and code together? Yes. And I hope you remember the statement I said in the morning. Without encapsulation, is abstraction possible? Without encapsulation, is abstraction possible? No. So what we are doing is going to be an encapsulation first. यानी कि पहले हम लोग इस encapsulation को समझेंगे and then we are going to look for its abstraction. And this is an example. The class is an example of encapsulation because what it does is it binds this data, which is the fields, and the code, which are the methods now. This is what a class is. What is an object? What is an object? What is an object? It is a hmm, physical entity. Very good. Next, it's a physical entity. Next, it is also called as an very good instance of the class. It is also called as an instance of the class. Yes, something more. Something more. Object is an example of abstraction. Object is an example of abstraction. Object create करना तभी possible है if the class is been defined. Very good. हाँ, get space in the memory, लेकिन कहाँ पे? Where? Is it stack? Is it heap? ठीक है. Let me talk about it. So that answer, like it gets space into the memory, it is for this part. Ki if the question is asked, why class is a logical entity and why object is a physical entity? So you can say class just exists logically. So memory is not allocated for a class, but the memory is allocated for the object whenever it is created. Now, where the memory is allocated, where the object gets created. यानी अगर आप C++ background से आ रहे हो, the object can be created onto the data section, onto the stack section, or onto the heap section. In 3 of these sections, you can create it. But when you come down to Java, there is only one particular area into which the object can be created. That's the heap. So for objects, the memory is allocated on the sections, not for the classes. And that's why object is considered as a physical entity and class is considered as a logical entity. The size for the object is given by looking at the way the class is being defined. And whatever the number of fields that you write inside the class, depending on that, the memory for the object will be given. And that is why the class is called as the blueprint of an object. इसलिए class को blueprint कहा जाता है. These are the reasons. This is the way you can explain it to it. But yes, is the class an object here to you? Any questions into the class and object? No? Are any questions? Have you got the concept? चलो concept तो समझ आया. What is the class? What is an object? Yes, very good. Fine. So if you have understood it, can I write my first class in a proper way, a bit proper way? थोड़ा सा अच्छी तरीके से लिख सकता हूँ. Can I write my class a bit proper way? Yes, definitely. So let us go over here and let us write it down. एक class लिखते हैं पहले. So I'm going to close this project and I'm going to create one more, we could say a Java project where I'm going to say that's going to be my demo02. And inside this demo02, I'm going to create one class. We will call it as program class. Maybe I can say it in this. Maybe why program? Maybe I can say this is going to be my time class like this. Hey, look at this. Let me close this project now. Okay, and let us work on to this class. If class consists of field and method, what object consists of? Object consists of the memory for that particular field path. Wait for it. That is what I'm trying to show it to you. So जरा आप यहाँ पे check करो. There is going to be a class called as a time class. Inside this time class, there is going to be, we could say integer hour and integer minute. what do we have? We have this two fields. One is hour, another is minute. Now this particular class that I have created, can you see that? It's been created inside this demo02. ये इस पर्टिकुलर अब नए प्रोजेक्ट के अंदर मैंने इस क्लास को क्रिएट किया हुआ. Now this class does not have any main. This class does not have any main method right now. So can you tell me, can I execute this class? Can I execute this class? इस क्लास के अंदर मैंने मेन नहीं रखा हुआ है. See, if I want I can keep it, but मैंने मेन नहीं रखा हुआ है. Maybe I am going to add only one method. We will call it as a display method. Look at this. Maybe there's going to be a display method. What does the class consist of? This class consists of the fields, and this class consists of the methods. Inside this display, I'm going to display, this is the value of time. What it is? This is the value of time. Time equals to dash. मैं कुछ show नहीं कर रहा हूँ. See, I'm just writing a basic class. I'm trying to teach you everything from basic. What I'm writing is a simple class. I'm writing this hour, minute. This is the display, and I just want to execute it. Can I execute it? Answer is no. If you try to execute, look at this. What happens? मैं यहाँ पे execute करने के लिए इसको run करता हूँ. It says the selection cannot be launched and there are no any recent launches. Okay. यानी कि आप उसको कैसे भी रन करने की कोशिश करो, यू कैनॉट रन इट एक्चुअली. कैन यू सी दैट? आप इसको रन ही नहीं कर सकते बिकॉज देयर इज नो एनी मेन इनसाइड इट. इसके अंदर क्या नहीं है? मेन नहीं. इफ आई ऐड द मेन मेथड इनसाइड इट, लुक एट दैट. इफ आई ऐड द मेन मेथड इनसाइड इट एंड इफ आई नाउ से right click run as, you will be able to see something called as Java application. Maybe I can say over here system.out.println, that's going to be the hello. मैंने यहाँ पे hello लिखा. Now run this particular class and you'll be able to see that it is now asking me whether you want to execute this Java application. Click on OK and it will say hello. यानी कि unless and until there is a main inside it, you cannot execute a particular class. अरे बट ये तो गड़बड़ हो जाएगी. Now there is going to be a big problem that every single time I need to have a class. क्या मुझे हर एक क्लास में मेन ऐड करना पड़ेगा? No. Then is there any better solution on top of it? Yes. Series. अब जरा स्टेप बाय स्टेप प्रोसेस देखो. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to keep it in this way. यानी कि मैं हर एक क्लास में जाकर के मेन नहीं ऐड करने वाला हूं. So I'm going to use a main method to test those classes. यानी कि the way we were creating it in C and C++, where the main function was kept on a global scope. All the structures and the classes were kept onto the global scope. Similarly, main was kept onto the global scope. तो ऐसा ही कुछ मुझे अब यहाँ पे चाहिए. And this is what I'm going to see now. So I will be deleting this particular time class. A look at that. I will be deleting it, and I'm going to create one more particular, we could say, a class over here, and the name of the class is going to be, let's say, program. जिसे हम लोगों ने पहली बार किया. And this program is going to have a main which will be actually testing my rest of the classes. Which will be actually testing my rest of the classes. तो यहाँ पे सारा चीज क्या होगा? So here I'm going to perform the test cases. Now, which class I want to test? So let's say I want to test the time class. So what I will do is within this particular program or within this particular program.java file, I will be creating a class called as the time class. यानी कि मैं अलग से टाइम क्लास बना के उसके अंदर मेन नहीं ऐड करूंगा. I will add that particular main inside this program class, and inside this time I'm going to just add the fields and the methods. यहाँ पे मैं इसको ऐड करूंगा. And entire testing I will do it inside this main. First, is this clear? मुझे क्या काम करना है? That what I'm doing. I'm not creating the main method in every single class. मुझे हर एक क्लास में main method नहीं चाहिए. I will keep this main method only inside this class called as the program class, where I will test all those cases. And rest of the classes I will be creating it on top of this. ऐसे मैं create कर सकता हूँ. Let me know. Is this clear so far first? क्या ये चीज clear है? What I'm trying to do. No mains to be created in all the classes. सभी classes में main method को create नहीं करना है. Create it only once into the program class. Any questions so far? Any questions? Have you got the concept so far? ये main कहाँ पे लिखना है? पहले ये समझ आएगा. अरे where to write the main? If no, say no. If yes, say yes. At least tell me something. Fine. Now the second thing, अगर आपने ठीक से नोटिस किया, there is this public that has been attached for the class program, but the public is not attached to class type. ऐसा क्यों? Have you seen that? The public is attached to the program class, but the public is not attached to the time class. Are you able to observe that? What if I try to attach this public? What if I try to attach this public to the time class now? Is there a check करो? Are you getting an error? Can you guess what will be the error? यानी कि अगर किसी ने पहले से किया होगा, so that at least I will get to know कि कितने लोगों को जावा पहले से आता है. If no, then I will be explaining it in from scratch way. Are you able to see the error first? ए यहाँ पे error दिखा क्या? Are you able to see the error for the time? एक अंडरलाइन आ चुका है रेड कलर का. Look at that. There is an error now. Yes. So now this error is not because of the main. ये main की वजह से error नहीं है. It is not because कि main particular method आपके time के अंदर नहीं है and it should be made as public. ऐसा नहीं है. The error is because in Java it is a rule. ये rule है. In Java it is a rule that if you are declaring a class as a public, then in that case the name of the file, what is the name of the file right now? Program. So the name of the file and the name of the dot class, the name of the public class should be same. That's the rule in Java. Rule क्या कहता है कि if you are making the class as a public, then the name of the file and the name of this public class should be same. ये दोनों क्या होने चाहिए? Same होने चाहिए. Right now, what is the public class? The public class is time. What is the name of the .java file? Program. चलेगा? नहीं चलेगा. And that's why you are getting an error. And you can even read this error. Is there an error को बोलो? What it says? The public type time must be defined in its own file. यानी कि यहाँ पे पब्लिक क्लासेस का नाम और फाइल का नाम कंपल्सरी सेम होना चाहिए. दैट्स द रूल इन जावा. ये आपके जावा के अंदर रूल है. दैट इज द we could say specification about the Java कि जो उन्होंने डिसाइड करके रखा हुआ. That's how it should be done. So if I want this time class to be public, I should be having the name of the file over here. Look at that. तो यहाँ पे वो प्रोग्राम नाम का फाइल नहीं होना चाहिए. So the name of this file should be time. Look at that like this. Time. Click on next. Click on finish. Sorry, my bad. यहाँ पे वो है प्रोग्राम. Like it should be this way. इस तरह चेक करो. Is the name of the .java file over here is the time.java? Yes. Do we have this particular class time as a public class now? Yes. अब चलेगा. अब चलेगा. No, कैसे पॉसिबल है अभी? ना पॉसिबल ही नहीं है. Can I make this class and this class as public? चलेगा? नहीं चलेगा. क्यों? क्योंकि ये क्या कहेगा? It will say that if the class is public, then the name of the file should be same. तो फाइल का नाम अब मैं टाइम रखूं कि प्रोग्राम रखूं? क्या रखूं? So that is not possible. यानी कि यहाँ पे एक ही पब्लिक क्लास अब हो सकता है जिसका फाइल का नाम और उसका क्लास क्या होगा? सेम होगा. ऐसे मल्टीपल क्लासेस के नाम फाइल को मैं कैसे दे सकता हूँ? पॉसिबल ही नहीं है. करेक्ट? That is why. So you cannot have more than one public class inside one Java file. But you can have as many non-public classes as you want. Is it necessary to have main inside public class only? No. No. Look at this. इधर यहाँ पे चेक करो. Cut, paste. Where is the method? Where is the public? Where is the main method now? Is it inside the program class? Yes. That's how it is. By default, it is public. No. If nothing is been returned, it is default. What it is? It is default. ये डिफॉल्ट करके एक एक्सेस मॉडिफायर एग्जिस्ट करता है जावा में. व्हाट इट इज वी आर गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट इट. तो अगर कुछ भी नहीं लिखा, इट इज नॉट पब्लिक, इट इज डिफॉल्ट. आर दिस थिंग्स क्लियर? आई नो इट इज मेनी ऑफ द थिंग्स दैट यू आर ट्राइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड, बट प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड इट करेक्टली. सो आई एम ट्राइंग टू राइट अ क्लास. मैं पहले क्लास लिख रहा हूं, लेकिन क्लास को लिखना कैसे ये पता होना चाहिए. वेयर द क्लास इज बीन डिक्लेयर्ड. इफ द क्लास name and the file name is same, you can declare this class as public. But if you want to have multiple classes inside the file, then there should be multiple non-public classes. आप multiple public classes declare नहीं कर सकते. Now why to declare the class as public? ये reason आप पैकेजेस के दौरान समझोगे. सो व्हेन वी आर गोइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड द कंसेप्ट ऑफ पैकेजेस, एट दैट टाइम यू विल बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड इट कि क्यों पब्लिक. बट यस, टुडे वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट कि पब्लिक और डिफॉल्ट में डिफरेंस क्या है, इसकी बात नहीं करेंगे. वी विल नॉट टॉक अबाउट व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन अ पब्लिक एंड अ डिफॉल्ट, बट वी विल जस्ट अंडरस्टैंड कि अगर एक पर्टिकुलर क्लास लिखना है, देन हाउ द क्लास शुड बी रिटन. ए मे बी आई एम गोइंग टू से इट इन दिस वे. जरा चेक करो. So inside this, I'm going to say system.out.println. Maybe I can say that's going to be the hello. This is going to be a main method which is kept inside this class program, which is a non-public class. So I'm going to run this program. I'm going to run this program. Sorry, my bad. Run as I have to run it in this way. मैं दिखाता हूँ, मैं आपको रन करके दिखाने वाला हूँ. So maybe I can open this particular, we could say, our directory where I have stored it. So that's going to be the training courses, that's modular, that's CJ016, that's going to be the day 01. Hey, please have a look at this. That's our demo 02. और डेमो 02 के अंदर इनसाइड दिस एसआरसी हम लोगों ने टाइम डॉट जावा फाइल क्रिएट किया. व्हाट वी हैव क्रिएटेड इज अ टाइम डॉट जावा फाइल. एंड इफ यू ऑब्जर्व कि इसके कंपाइलेशन के बाद इसने दो डॉट क्लास फाइल्स बनाने चाहिए. It should have created these two dot class files, one for this time which is going to be time dot class and another for this program which is going to be the program dot class file. So where are those dot class files created? So those dot class files are created inside this bin directory. You look at that. There are these two directories, one is src and another is bin. What does the src consist of? This time dot java file. If I go back and if I go inside this bin, you will be able to see there are these two dot class files now. One is program and another is time dot class. This particular program class has the main method. Look at this. What this program class has? Program class has the main method. Is the time class having main method? No. Here time class is a public class. Program class is a non-public class. So I will go over here and I am going to execute it. मैं इसको अब execute करने वाला हूँ. So how I will execute it? I will go inside this bin. I will open the command prompt. I will open the command prompt. Look at that. And in this command prompt, look at that. Look at the location. ये सभी लोग लोकेशन चेक करो. I am into the bin right now. मैं कहाँ पे हूँ? इस डेमो 2 के bin में हूँ. Where I have these two files. One is program and another is time.class. If I say Java, that's going to be the program. Hey, can you tell me, is the name of the dot class file program now? क्या यहाँ पे डॉट क्लास फाइल का नाम प्रोग्राम है? यस. इज माई प्रोग्राम और नॉन पब्लिक क्लास? यस. ये क्या है? एक नॉन पब्लिक क्लास है. हिट एंटर. इज इट सेइंग हेलो? सो कैन आई एग्जीक्यूट इट? यस. तो अगर मैं कमांड लाइन के ऊपर आता हूं, इफ आई स्टार्ट डूइंग इट व्हाट एसटीएस इज डूइंग इंटरनली, आई कैन एग्जीक्यूट एनी पर्टिकुलर क्लास व्हिच हैज अ मेन मेथड. सो नॉट नेसेसरी द नेम ऑफ द क्लास शुड बी पब्लिक. अब यहाँ पे नेसेसरी नहीं है कि उस पर्टिकुलर क्लास का जो भी वी कुड से मॉडिफायर है that should be public. It can be also the default. I can execute it. So tell me, is there any restriction on having or keeping the main method inside a non-public class is not allowed? ऐसा कोई restriction है? No, there is no such restriction. You can execute it as it is. But I can execute it from the command prompt. ये command prompt से possible है. But is it possible to execute it from the STS? Look at that. STS से मैं यहाँ पे run करने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ. What it says? It says main method not found. It says please define this main method as public static void main inside which class? Inside the time class. Now यहां से possible नहीं है लेकिन command prompt से possible है. ऐसा क्यों? It is not possible from here, but it is possible from command prompt. Why like this? The reason is your STS is trying to automate the process, and when it tries to automate the process, it has generally kept some fixed rules for it. And the STS has kept, and the ID has kept a rule that if you are defining a main method, so that main method will be defined in a class, and to create a class, you will be creating a file. And if you are creating a file, that means the name of the class and the file name is going to remain same. That means the class is going to be later on a public class. Now, because it's a public class, it will always try to look for a main method kept inside a public class. ये कौन करता है? ये आपका ID करता है. This is what your IDE is trying to do. This is not something that the Java has recommended. Java कहता है कि आप कोई भी पर्टिकुलर मेन मेथड एग्जीक्यूट कर सकते हो. As per the rule of Java, you can execute any particular class which consists of a main method. But if you are working with the IDEs, you must be knowing some rules about the IDs. Because the IDs are meant for automation, this particular ID is trying to execute directly the main method from a public class. So if the name of the class, name of the .java file is time, it will try to look for the main method inside the time rather than to looking for the main method in any of the rest of the classes. ऐसा वो करता है, ऐसा वो ID करता है. But as per Java, it is not particular the rule. वो जावा के हिसाब से रूल नहीं है, it is a rule as per the ID. Please understand. Let me know. Are these scenarios of executing this main clear to you? Is this default behavior of an ID? Can you repeat? Yes, yes, that's the default behavior. ये उसका default behavior है कि वो हमेशा जॉब की फाइल रहेगी, उसी फाइल के अंदर वो मेन मेथड ढूंढेगा, सॉरी उसी क्लास के अंदर वो मेन मेथड ढूंढेगा. इफ द नेम ऑफ द फाइल इज टाइम, so it will always look for the main method inside the time rather than looking for the rest of the classes, because in a particular .java file there can be multiple, look at this, there can be multiple classes. Can you say that? तो वो कहाँ कहाँ पे जाके ढूंढेगा, exactly which one he should be considering. So ID का behavior fix है, ID will always look for the main method, जो भी particular file का नाम होगा उसी क्लास में जाके ढूंढेगा. So what is the name of the file right now? The name of the file is time, so it will always look for the public class time and inside this it will look for the main method. But is it really compulsory? मैंने आपको करके भी दिखाया. Is it really compulsory to have the main method only inside the public class? No. The main method can be kept in any classes. Main method किसी भी classes में चलेगी, जो रन करना है कर सकते हो, बट आईडी स्पेसिफिकली सिर्फ पब्लिक क्लासेस में जाके ढूंढता है. दैट्स व्हाट इट डज. लेट मी नो. मे बी आई कैन शो इट टू यू बाय हैविंग द रन कॉन्फ़िगरेशंस. तो रन कॉन्फ़िगरेशंस में शायद मैं इसको चेंज भी कर पाऊं. सो मे बी आई कैन से देयर इज गोइंग टू बी अ प्रोग्राम. लुक एट दैट. दैट्स गोइंग टू बी द प्रोग्राम. और उस प्रोग्राम को मैं प्रोग्राम क्लास भी दे सकता हूं. कैन यू सी दैट? बस उसको कॉन्फ़िगर करना पड़ता है. दैट्स व्हाट इट नीड्स टू बी डन. यू नीड टू कॉन्फ़िगर इट. सो जैसे मैंने अभी यहां से किया, सो द वे आई डिड इट फ्रॉम दिस कमांड प्रॉम्प्ट, इट इज गोइंग टू बी द सेम थिंग. व्हाट्स द बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस? बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस इज क्रिएट अ पब्लिक क्लास और उसके अंदर मेन लिख दो. दैट्स द बेस्ट प्रैक्टिस, बिकॉज यू आर यूजिंग एन आईडी. आप ऑटोमेशन यूज कर रहे हो. सो इफ यू आर यूजिंग ऑटोमेशन, यू शुड फॉलो द रूल्स ऑफ ऑटोमेशन. तो अपने ऑटोमेशन के रूल्स फॉलो करने चाहिए. बट आई एम नॉट ओनली मेकिंग यू अ रोबोट. मैं आपको रोबोट नहीं बना रहा हूँ. आई एम टीचिंग यू द कंसेप्ट. आई एम टेलिंग यू द कंसेप्ट. आपको इंटरनल्स पता होने चाहिए. दैट्स व्हाट आई एम टीचिंग यू. सो इन द केस ऑफ इंटरनल्स, you can do because you are the developer, you are the one who is creating it, so you must know all the ins and outs कि कैसे मैं उसको changes कर सकता हूँ, कैसे मैं उसको manipulate कर सकता हूँ. I can run it in this way, I can run it in that way, so that आगे जाकर के अगर आपके पास ID ना भी हो, if suppose you have given only the Java code, तो आप client machine पे जाके ID थोड़ी install करोगे. Are you getting those things? When you go on to the client machine, there the ID does not exist. You have to do everything from the command prompt. तो command prompt से आपको उसको execute करके देना पड़ेगा. So that's what I am teaching you. That's it. Let me know any questions over. Again, all the people I know, it might be really a lot of things that you are trying to understand it on the first day, but that's what the Java is. There are a lot of concepts, still lot of concepts to be coming up ahead. जितने आप digest कर सकते हो on day one, only digest those many concepts. Once you have digested those concepts, once you are aware about those concepts, then I would recommend that you should be going a step ahead into it. Anyhow, this recording will be available to you. तो आप चाहे तो वापस से वो जो पर्टिकुलर कंसेप्ट सबको चाहिए कि पब्लिक क्लासेस का, मे बी कंपाइलेशन का, यू कैन अगेन गो एंड अगेन यू कैन स्टार्ट रिपीटिंग दोस पर्टिकुलर थिंग. बट मेक श्योर कि आप वीडियोस जल्द से जल्द देखो, यानी कि इवन बिफोर कमिंग फॉर द नेक्स्ट डे सेशन अगर आप देखोगे तो भी चलेगा. बट मेक श्योर यू go through the concept multiple times if you're not able to understand it in the one go. Fine. Any questions so far? Is the difference between a public class and a non-public class clear to you? A difference clear है? पब्लिक एंड नॉन पब्लिक क्लास. चलो ठीक है, फिर मुझे आंसर दो. क्वेश्चन: हाउ मेनी पब्लिक क्लासेस we can declare in single .java file? In single .java file. Very good. Only one. Only one. Very good. can the name of, or we could say name of public class and name of .java file should be different? True ki false? True ki false? हाँ, first of all, it should be false. The name of the public class and the name of the .java file should be same. ये चलो एक काम करते हैं. So we have done it through the particular command line. हम लोगों ने कुछ command line के साथ काम किया था. So the name of the file was program.java. I hope you remember that. And there was a class called as a test into which we had a main, and there was a class called as a one into which we have this hello world from one. So I want to make this class as a public class. मैं उस क्लास को एक पब्लिक क्लास बनाना चाहता हूँ. So can you tell me if I make this class test as a public class, have you observed क्या हुआ यहाँ पे ऑटोमेटिकली? ये मैंने कुछ नहीं किया, मैंने सिर्फ फाइल को सेव किया. I haven't done anything, और उसने ऑटोमेटिकली उसको चेंज कर दिया. Have you seen that? Let me show it to you once again. ठीक है? So this was program.java like this. ये ऐसे था program.java. I just added the public over here. और जैसे ही मैंने पब्लिक ऐड किया, I just saved this file. जैसे मैंने सेव किया ऑटोमेटिकली, कैन यू सी दैट? ऑटोमेटिकली उसने रीनेम किया. मैंने कुछ भी नहीं किया, मैंने ना क्लिक किया ना कुछ किया, मैंने जैसे सेव किया, कंट्रोल एस. दैट्स व्हाट आई हैव डन. सो कैन आई से इवन द एडिटर इज ट्राइंग टू फॉलो द सेम थिंग? Even the editor is trying to follow the same thing? Yes. The reason is because it's the Java language specification. This is because it is the Java language specification that the name of the .java file and name of public class should be same. ये जावा लैंग्वेज का स्पेसिफिकेशन ही है. इट इज नॉट ओनली अबाउट हैविंग दिस बीन फोर्स्ड बाय द आईडीज, बट ये उस लैंग्वेज का ही स्पेसिफिकेशन है दैट द नेम ऑफ द .java फाइल एंड द नेम ऑफ द पब्लिक क्लास शुड बी सेम. हाँ, बस आपका आईडी किसे फोर्स करता है कि मेन मेथड कहां पे होगा, दैट विच मेन मेथड इट विल एग्जीक्यूट, सिर्फ वहां पे वो ऑटोमेशन फोर्स करता है. इट सेज दैट कीप द मेन मेथड इनसाइड द पब्लिक क्लास, बट वो मेन मेथड पब्लिक क्लास में रखना, दैट्स नॉट द जावा लैंग्वेज स्पेसिफिकेशन. जावा लैंग्वेज का स्पेसिफिकेशन बस ये है दैट द नेम ऑफ द .java फाइल एंड द नेम ऑफ द पब्लिक क्लास शुड बी सेम. Let me know, are these things and the interview questions clear to you? Yes. How many non-public classes can we write inside a single .java file? Multiple. Very good. We can provide, or we can write multiple, we could say, non-public classes inside a single .java file. Very good. Can I have main method in public as well as non-public classes? Can we have main method in public as well as non-public classes? Yes, answer is yes. We can have main method in any of those classes. If you are using an STS specifically, अगर आप IDs को use करो, then it will definitely look for an public class for the main method. Otherwise, main methods are allowed in all the different classes, public as well as non-public classes. Are these concepts of public class, the non-public class, is it been clear to you so far? क्या ये सारी चीजें clear हैं? Is it been clear? Any questions so far? Yes or no? Yes. Very good. Now, ये आप मुझे बताओ. If you tell me, then I'm going to teach you about this. If you look at the directory structure over here, अगर आपने ये notice किया रहेगा that if you are using an STS, it creates this folder demo1, demo2 like this, and inside this demo1, demo2, it creates these two directories. One is src and another is bin. Inside this src, what do you have is, let's say, all the .java files, and inside this bin, what do you have are all the .class files. तो इसके अंदर क्या है, वो सभी .class files. So if you tell me that sir हमें बताओ, so I will teach you today itself कि ये कैसे किया जाता है. Separate this part into the src and bin. अगेन इट इज गोइंग टू बी लाइक टू मच ऑफ इट, आई नो ये काफी ज्यादा हो जाएगा, बिकॉज हियर यू नीड टू सेट द क्लास पाथ ओवर देयर, यानी कि आपको यहाँ पे उसका क्लास पाथ सेट करना पड़ता है, सो दैट वी आर गोइंग टू गो फॉर। अगर नहीं, सो मे बी ऑन मंडे वी आर गोइंग टू गो फॉर इट, एंड ऑन मंडे सो दैट यू विल बी एक्चुअली प्रैक्टिसिंग इट टुडे, यानी कि आप आज कमांड लाइन के थ्रू ये प्रैक्टिस करो, एंड ऑन मंडे वी कैन शो यू और आई कैन शो इट टू यू कि कंपाइल करते वक्त आपको क्या चेंज करना पड़ेगा। सो इट इज लाइक फॉर द कंपाइलेशन यू हैव टू से इट लाइक दिस, जावा सी wherever you want to keep into the directory like -d, change the directory, जहां पे आपका bin directory होगा वो पाथ देना पड़ेगा, so maybe if the previous directory you have to say ./bin and you have to compile the code, यानी कि थोड़े से कमांड के जो स्टेप्स है, कंपाइलेशन के स्टेप्स है, वो चेंज होंगे, एंड देन इट इज गोइंग टू गो ओवर देयर। सो दो चीजें हैं, आइदर आई एम गोइंग टू टीच इट टू यू टुडे इटसेल्फ, यानी कि मैं आज ही बताऊंगा, अदरवाइज आई विल टीच यू इट ऑन टू द मंडे, यानी कि मंडे को बताऊंगा। सो इट नीड्स प्रैक्टिस, यानी कि अगर आप कंफर्टेबल हो, इफ यू आर कंफर्टेबल और इफ यू हैव अंडरस्टूड दिस पार्ट, देन इट्स वर्क टू गो फॉर इट, वरना ये पूरा सर के ऊपर से जाएगा। सो इट विल बी लाइक टोटली नहीं, ये कहाँ पे क्रिएट हुआ, क्यों क्रिएट हुआ, सो दैट विल बी लाइक टोटली ऑफ द टॉपिक हो जाएगा ये, दैट इज व्हाट इट विल बी। Because I can see the time, it's already 12:40, and that is what I'm worried about. So that's what I asked for you. ठीक है, काम करते हैं, we will definitely do it on Monday. So Monday को एक काम करेंगे, so when we are going to start with this session, so first of all we will divide this code into these two parts. One, the source will have only the source code and the bin is going to have just the compiled files, that is the .class files. But इसके लिए आपके कौन कौन से concepts clear होने चाहिए, let me tell you, so that those many things you need to practice it. तो आपको प्रैक्टिस करना है फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल हाउ टू राइट अ हेलो वर्ल्ड प्रोग्राम, हेलो वर्ल्ड यूजिंग द वी कुड से टर्मिनल, यानी कि टर्मिनल कंपाइलेशन, दिस इज व्हाट यू नीड टू डू, ये आपको करना है। सेकेंड, यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड ऑल द पब्लिक एंड नॉन पब्लिक क्लासेस, यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस, पब्लिक क्लास क्या होता है, नॉन पब्लिक क्लास क्या होता है, देन द नेम ऑफ द .java फाइल, नेम ऑफ द पब्लिक क्लास, ये आप करके देखो थोड़ा सा, थ्रू द स्टेज आप करके देखो, या फिर थ्रू द VS कोड, एनी हाउ यू वांट यू कैन जस्ट राइट आउट, ये आप ट्राई करके देखो। Next, what you need to try is, let's say you need to work around how to declare a class, what does the class consist of, because this is what I'm going to start even on to the Monday. On Monday I'm also going to talk about something called as the class path, कि class path क्या होता है, how to set the class path, because without this you cannot execute the code. Later on when you are going to divide the code into the SRC and bin, तो उसके लिए मुझे क्लास पाथ भी सेट करना पड़े। तो अगर आप ये सारी चीजें, यानी कि अगर पहले तीन चीजें भी अगर आप करके आओगे, द कंपाइलेशन एंड so even that is more than sufficient for but today I can say for today we are going to actually stop over here. आज के लिए काफी है।